It is October 27, 2020, and we are calling the Concord School Committee to order. Note that we will be going into executive session, and we would like to hear a motion that the Concord School Committee will enter into executive session under Purpose 3 of the Open Meeting Law to discuss strategy.
Do you just want to do the roll call for attendance?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for, thank you very much.
And Court, can you note that we're being recorded?
Well, I was about to do that, yes.
Oh, sorry.
but I'm getting straightened out here. I'll do that.
Sorry.
Thank you, Heather. So we'll do the roll call. Alexa?
Anderson present.
And Booth present.
Bout present.
Rainey present.
And so I see we have Eva here. Eva?
Hello.
The Concord School Committee is going to be called to order in a moment, and then we're going to depart and go into executive session and then come back for joint at 5 o'clock sharp. Okay?
All right. So it's Eva, it's just Concord in executive session.
Okay. So with that, we've done our roll call, and we have called the meeting to order, and the motion from the top that the Concord School Committee will enter into executive session under Purpose 3 of the Open Meeting Law to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and return to open session at 5 p.m. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
A second, please.
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor, roll call, please.
Anderson, aye.
Booth, aye.
Bout aye.
Rainey, aye.
Okay, and Fatima will be with us shortly. Okay.
Great.
Okay.
And we'll note the time when she joins us. Okay, so we'll leave it to you, Aaron, to send us into executive session, please.
All right, let's see if this works.
Thank you.
Court, you're on.
Hi, Fatima. Hi, Sarah. And let's see. It's 5:01. I think we could, Sarah, you could text her as we get started, perhaps?
She's coming in. It's under Ariana.
Okay. I got another invite for a breakout, which I'm going to ignore.
Yes, we say later. Later.
Okay. Hi, Amy. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you too.
A long time.
Mhm.
You look well. I hope you're happy.
Thank you. You too.
Good. So we'll wait until 5:02 and get started. Oh, no, there we have Eva as well. So we're at full strength. Sarah, do you want to call Concord Carlisle together and I'll follow with Concord?
Sure. It is 5:02 on October 27th, and I'd like to call to order the meeting of Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee.
And I will call the meeting of the Concord School Committee to order and note that we are being recorded. Our first item of business is the public comment.
Do we need to roll call?
Roll
the roll
call.
call?
Thank you.
Or just joining? Yeah.
So we'll do that in our new custom.
Anderson, present.
And Booth present. Heather?
Sorry about present.
All right. And let's see. So we go to Fatima. Am I correct?
Is that present?
Thank you. And Eva?
Stuffy, present.
And
Rainey
Cynthia?
present.
Wilson present for region.
Thank you. So we have public comment first, and we'll be patient here and ask that people go to the participant list and raise your hand so that we could recognize you, if you'd be so kind. And seeing none at the present time, Sarah.
I don't see any.
Okay. So with that, these were joint meetings. Could we have you take item 4 there, Sarah? Looking for a motion for the minutes.
Motion to accept the minutes from the joint meetings of September 29th and October 6th of 2020.
So moved.
Second for both.
Roll call.
Anderson, I for both.
Booth, aye for both.
About aye for both.
Mezed, I for both.
Mustafi for region.
Rainey, aye for both.
And Wilson for both. And then we can move on to chairs and liaisons reports. I didn't hear from anyone in particular other than Court, I believe.
Okay, so
We can start.
a couple of items for me. One, we want to recognize the community education program and its instrumental music program. These are some 40 teachers and 250 students who diligently work after school or before school to polish their music abilities, and in so doing help the district bring home a few of their gold medals every year. So we want to give our commendations to the Instrumental Music School and its leadership and its faculty. as a private citizen, I have attended a couple of meetings of the Concord Stands for Democracy group, a group that's been in touch with a number of appointed public officials as well. And this is a group that you'll probably read about in local media, trying to celebrate election integrity and democracy. They did ask for outreach to the schools, and on your behalf, I said that that wasn't something we would be doing, that we wouldn't do something like that for during school time, and they understand. We note that the high school, this is your domain too, Sarah, issued its student newspaper again, a new version, which is, again, impressive work on behalf of our kids. And then finally, continuing on the subject of a workshop around school finance with the two FinComs and school committees, it appears that's going to come together for December 8th. So we're going to ask Mr. Stanton to be in touch with members of the FinCom. I think, Jared, you will be the primary on designing that session. But you'll have some input, FinCom specific, I think, from the FinCom. But I think you'll be the star witness, as they say. And I attended the chair's breakfast and brought other Concord chairs up to date on activities in the schools, notably that we continue to be successful and I think a leader in the Commonwealth in bringing kids back safely. We're only as good as we are today and tomorrow. We're not going to rest on our laurels, but I think we can give sincere thanks to the faculty and all the staff that toil every day to make this possible for kids and families in Concord and Concord Carlisle. So, Lori, if you can extend those thanks once again. Because we know it takes remarkable stamina to do what they're doing.
Correct. Thank you.
That's what I've got under chairs, Sarah.
And I attended the EDCO roundtable, and like Court, I just want to recognize that really the region is doing a phenomenal job. I think we've been in session longer than anybody else. It seemed everyone else is just getting their feet wet. And so I think that is a tremendous effort on our part and a testament to all of the work on the part of the administration, the faculty, staff, school committee, students. I mean, everybody really doing a phenomenal job. I know people were surprised how well we've been doing it for, that we got out there early and set a good pace for everyone else. And I think really, Carlisle passed its budget finally. So we've caught up with you there. And I think that's it. We had the rainy town meeting outside. So.
Other liaison reports?
Just a Cpac liaison report. I just wanted to let everyone know that October 29th, which is a Thursday at 7 p.m., Cpac and Ruth Gruby, Director of Student Services, and our Superintendent Laurie Hunter will be holding a meeting on special education services that are provided in the hybrid and remote models. And communication has gone out to all of the families with students on IEPs. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe I should mention quickly, this is almost a report of no report, but just so that, we're not neglecting the League of Women Voters. Their focus right now is really wholly on election and election support and lead up. So the education committee has not met yet. But when it does, then we will be involved and included.
Anything else? If not, we'll move on to correspondence.
On the region, we only had two correspondences, and neither was actually related to regional school committee business. So the authors have been directed in the right direction to seek their answers from the right source.
And we had 3 for Concord. 2 were students doing research, University of Massachusetts Boston student on gender and leadership in schools and specifically school committees, and wanted information about us. And they were informed it was publicly available. And they have our common email address if they want to inquire with any of us. Secondly, a student at Emerson College who was looking at student decision-making and then decided she had enough in her research pool and would absent Concord Carlisle. And then third, the PTG at the middle school wanted to double check some information in their directory. So it was a relatively quiet 2 weeks.
Okay.
So with that, we get to say hi again to Amy, don't we? And
Linda's here too.
Linda's here too. Wonderful. Oh yes, hi Linda. So Sarah, maybe you'd host our students. And,
Yes. Welcome, Linda. Welcome, Amy. Looking forward to getting to know you and hear all about your reports and updates.
I wonder if we could take just 1 minute because we're a new committee. Actually, they have more permanence than we do.
Yeah, they're all coming back, and some of you are newer since then. So,
since you saw us last time, we try to do our own roll calls alphabetically, Amy and Linda. So why don't we introduce ourselves alphabetically again, and then ask you to introduce yourselves and give us an update from the high school. So Alexa, if you'd be so kind.
Sorry, I am Alexa Anderson, and I am a new member to school committee. And 2 out of my 4 years at CCHS, I was in your position as rep to school committee.
nice.
So here we are. I feel like I'm back. I feel like we get along great with you girls.
And I'm Court Booth, and I spent a few years working at the high school and retired from public service about 5 years ago.
I'm Heather Bout, and we've spoken a lot before. I'm in my 6th year on the school committee, so this will be it for me, but it's good to see you both again.
I'm Fatima Mesdat. I am new on the school committee, my 1st year, and I am eager to get to know both of you and learn from your perspectives as students.
Hi, this is Eva Mustafi. I am a representative for the region from Carlisle, and I look forward to meeting you guys.
Hi, Cynthia Rady. It's my 2nd year, and welcome back. Look forward to seeing your insights as to what's going on at the high school.
Hi, Sarah Wilson, coming from Carlisle School Committee. This is my 1st year on region, and this is great to meet you both.
So you have the floor, Amy and Linda.
Okay. Well, I'm Amy. I'm a senior. And I guess the big thing that I think that is happening right now, at least from the Senate, is we're kind of trying to launch a virtual activities fair, which I think I sent to Dr. Hunter.
Yeah, let me screen share it for you.
Okay. Usually we do like a big, in-person activities fair at the end of September, and we have all the clubs like set up booths and information and talk to people, which we can't really do this year. So this is what we did instead. We started working on this over the summer, and we set up like a website for every club to send in their information on the club and in like an infographic, and then it's kind of organized by category and then contact information. So for freshmen, if they want to join a club, they can visit this website. to figure out what's going on at school, to kind of try to do what we usually do in previous years. And then another thing that just happened was we just finished CC Theater Under the Stars, which was the fall play we had this year, trying to be, more COVID conscious. And it was a series of 5 one-act plays, all directed by students, performing outdoors just this past weekend.
And it was,
I had the privilege of attending, and
I did.
what a great sense of normalcy it brought.
Yes.
And the kids, you pulled those together so quick since we just barely opened, and the outdoor creativity, it was really.
Yeah, I think doing that, at least for me, because I directed one of the shows, was like, it was like a chance to return to some kind of normalcy and see a lot of people again, and in like a safe way, because it was all outdoors, which was definitely like a very helpful thing to add on to my schedule.
Yeah.
good. Well, impressive work you did over the summer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you normally, can I ask a question? Do you guys normally have that website up for
we normally have like a website, like on our Senate website, we normally have this like a list of clubs and with their contact information. This is something we're going to try to have up all the time now that kind of goes more into detail. So it allowed every club to kind of make their own information so they can kind of put out there what they want to be put out there, and then allows for people to see what clubs are offered.
That's great. And there's in the Senate who's managing all this. You guys are doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like we kind of had like a small committee within the Senate that was mainly doing this. So everyone kind of pitched in, and then 4 or 5 people kind of went off and kind of went through with this.
Fantastic. Great job.
Yeah.
I'll email you all the links so you can peruse it. It's pretty impressive. You're right. It's going to be a resource for a long time. Yeah.
Yes, and Linda had some sports updates.
Yeah, so I'm Linda. I'm also senior like Amy. I was a school committee representative last year, like Amy. And for more school-wide events, so school sports, obviously for this fall season, are extremely different. However, they did still, most of them at least, except for high contact sports, were able to continue. And this past weekend was our Kicks for Cancer game, which is obviously such a community-wide annual event. And unfortunately, it couldn't be as big as it normally is, but it still got to continue. And the girls team won 1-0, and the boys team also won 2-0, which is the first time in 5 years that they actually got to win. So that's pretty nice. And as for things going around the student body, Amy and I would like to bring up just the workload. So Amy and I are both seniors, and senior fall is definitely extremely stressful, and even before COVID, but now that COVID is present and we're living through it, there are some additions to it. I personally did load up my senior schedule, and that is on me. I should have known that it was going to be a little tough, but I see a pattern going on that some of my teachers, especially in AP classes, because they need to follow a strict AP curriculum and they don't have the time to do it. Like in my biology class, in my AP biology class, we can't do the lab twice, one day with cohort A and another one for cohort B. We have to just keep it to one day. And along with that, my homework has pretty much doubled in all my classes, because part of it is teaching yourself the material, watching the lecture videos, and then doing the regular assignment or the normal assignment on top of it, because we don't get the class time to all be there and listen to the teacher lecture. And November 1st is a big deadline for a lot of students who are, and obviously Amy can totally add to this, because if you're applying early anywhere, November 1st is your biggest deadline. And it's also the end of the quarter. So for me, I have 3 tests this week, and I have 3 projects due on Monday. And then I have college apps due Sunday. So it's a lot, but
I think that, I think that right now the course load is definitely kind of building up. But I think that overall, like that, I think I've seen a pretty good response to the hybrid schedule that's been going on right now, because I think that it does give people a good balance of like being able to go in, and if you're not fully virtual, being able to go in and talk to people once in a while and see friends, but also, we can't go all the time. So I think that it definitely is building up right now, but I think overall people seem to like what we're doing this year, especially compared to last year, which I think was so like, very minimal workload, I think, was part of the thing. And now we're go back into like a pretty normal schedule of workload. So I think that that's part of the response. But I think overall people seem to like what's going on so far.
So,
As much as,
Linda,
yeah.
if a student was overwhelmed, if it was all too much, because we have days that are tough and weeks that are tough, and they come and go. What would you expect to hear? What would a student expect to hear from a member of the staff or the faculty?
Well, I've definitely heard teachers say that we understand that it's stressful, especially for deadlines. So I've had teachers be pretty flexible with their due dates, that if you need an extension, then they're completely welcome to offer you one. And I think for me, another issue that I'm having is I loved going to the MARC for extra help with math. And now that it's closed, it's a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
So having like the extra help sessions over Zoom now, whenever I want to meet with a teacher one-on-one, isn't exactly the same, but the fact that they're still trying to offer it as best as they can is really great.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that a lot of teachers, especially right now, I think because we're both seniors, they know that we have the early deadline coming up this weekend. So I think some teachers are being more lenient with that, where it's like, my math teacher did not assign any homework this past couple of days because he's like, I know you guys are going to be working really hard on those college applications. So I think that there's definitely some leniency, but also there's generally this end of quarter buildup of work that kind of goes along with the early decision application deadline.
Well, it certainly doesn't sound like cutting corners. It sounds like prioritizing wisely.
Yeah.
With faculty support. So.
Yeah, I think most teachers have been pretty understanding, just virtually versus, what virtual days is different than it's going to be on in-person days, depending on how people learn.
The pressure point has been a long-standing discussion for us, and it's still there, I guess, is what we're hearing.
Yeah.
End of quarter and the early application deadlines just correspond too closely, and we've tried a bunch of different ways to address it. And I think you're hitting the right ones. Talk to your teachers. And I'm glad to hear such a overall positive response.
I would also like to pose a question. I've heard this come up in a bunch of different classes. I heard my classmates wondering if we're going to go all remote anytime soon. I understand that this is not an easy question to answer, but just with the recent rise in cases and Boston Public Schools, which is obviously a bigger city, so we no one knows what to expect. But if you have any sort of insight that could answer possible questions.
May I? Is that right?
Yes, please.
I don't see any imminent. It would take a real cluster in the school to cause us to go to remote, is my sense after doing this for the last couple of months. Concord and Carlisle's cases are still low. We're always watching that. We're so far seeing that when we have cases, they are not spreading within the school, which I think is experience we didn't have before. So I think that's helpful. So there's never a guarantee, but I don't see it on the horizon. I was on with the commissioner earlier today. The state is not looking to close on any mass scale at any point. In fact, he's encouraging the districts in the red to stick with it carefully and cautiously, but to stick with it. So it will be a last resort because we've decided it's the only way to not have some bigger outbreak or something like that. And I say all this, and then that could happen as I, get off of here tonight. But the hope is that we don't get to that. So I will be at my report, and you girls may be off. I am not looking to recommend that we close around the holidays the way you might be hearing some of the other districts talking. I think we're in unless the virus data tells us otherwise. We're just every day is so precious. I don't want to give them away. So that's my discussion tonight, which I guess is my way of telling you what I'm going to do. So I hope that helps, girls. We're happy to meet with the Senate or continue to put word out to the student body.
Yes, I know that
Feel free to let us know when we need to do that.
Yeah, I know the Senate does appreciate having you come in, administration come in to talk as a group. I know that's something that people expressed interest in the end of last year.
Yep, let me know too, especially as these questions, when things change around you, it's going to keep happening where people are posturing and posing questions, and I'm happy to come tell you what I know.
The little bit I would add is that your school committee recognizes that this is very hard work. It's very hard work to maintain this hybrid schedule, to avoid being careless, and making mistakes. And you're not alone. Everybody in the school district has a similar story. But it is perhaps tougher for you because we expect you to be at the peak of your educational experience in high school. And yet we're denying you, and the pandemic is denying you so many essential pieces of that normal experience. So we can only say, please stay strong, and thank your classmates for staying strong on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just have to say, we are so impressed and proud of the student body and the way you came back. We thought we'd be doing days of safety training, and we'd have to hound you all to do what we need you to do, and you're just doing it. I was in the cafeteria yesterday on one of the only rainy days we've had, so I was there for another reason and decided to check it out. Everybody's just sitting. A lot of people sort of socializing from 6 feet apart. A lot of people just working. Honest to goodness, the adults hardly even had to be there. I mean, really, you've all just
people have been pretty considering how, it's pretty difficult to think, always think about that when you're seeing your friends. I think people have been relatively good with that in the hallways about.
Yeah, more than relatively, Amy.
Yeah.
You're really all impressing us. You're handling it with just a cooperation and acceptance that I'm sure is really hard, but you're doing it and doing it really graciously. So making it possible for us to stay in.
We expect that you might be returning to your schoolwork and your college apps tonight, but we want you to stay as long as you can. However, should you leave before we get to some business later, we want you both to know that we're working on more policies. This is one of the few sort of mission critical things that a school committee does. Tonight's policies, because these undergo constant review and hopefully updating and improvement, we're going to go through about 8 of them tonight. Most of them are directly relevant to students in school life. So perhaps you or another member of the Senate would, if you don't take in tonight's meeting, would look at that section of the recording later. And if you have thoughts, opinions, recommendations, that you let us know, because we want your voice to be heard.
Of course, yeah. I'm planning on staying on till 6 that's when the Senate meeting starts. Okay,
got it. So you probably missed that piece, but we want you to know it's relevant to you. And even if you're not in the room when we're discussing it, we're all ears after the fact as well, because we have several hundred policies that guide the schools, and we review them, a batch of them periodically.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, Amy and Linda, for tonight?
I think that's it.
Do you have any advice for us? Complaints?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
All right. So we'll ask that Dr. Hunter make sure that you have our meeting schedule so that we can see you next time around then.
Thank you.
Thanks, girls.
All right. Thank you very much. So with that then, Dr. Hunter, it's over to you for the report.
Great, thank you. I am going to highlight, I did restructure this report. Those of you who have seen my reports in the past, I really catered it to the goals. I just thought it would keep us all, I heard you suggest that we would keep a running log, and thought, why not just get off to a good start on that and keep us all organized right from the beginning. So this does parallel my goals, and that'll be my intent going forward, unless you tell me there's another way you'd rather see this. I'm not going to go through this. There's a lot here because I felt like I was capturing a month or so at a time. So just a couple of highlights. We are, as we get towards this end of the first quarter, we've just finished our assessments, the formative assessments we had planned, which is the STAR tool online, which we're using now across elementary, middle, and ninth grade. So we're analyzing that data. The principals are always also starting to look at progress report data and other signs of how kids are doing in these environments. And we are identifying and will be supporting kids who are struggling. That's been a big part of our work so far this week. I wouldn't say it's huge numbers, but it's really, really important we work with the ones that are. And of course, in this, with so much remote time, it's a different challenge than it's been in the past and how to reach those kids. So that's actively going on. I obviously am still communicating a lot and regularly. You're seeing all of that. Some of the, I think one positive for me over the last week was to be appointed as our region's MASS representative to the committee that the Superintendent's Association is forming regarding racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I'm excited to have that conversation at a state level with my colleagues. I think we'll offer things and obviously take back a lot as well. And I think my final comment will just be that we're very close to having next steps start back up with the middle school project. I've been working with the chairs. I think we're hopeful for a select board date soon. I've been talking to Stephen Crane about that. And just sort of slightly re-engaged with the architects and OPM, which feels good after so much time away, just to reacquaint ourselves where we left off. Mr. Cameron and I spent most of the day last Thursday really looking at the plans and where we were, which took a little while to reacclimate. So that's exciting. That's forward thinking. And I know we aren't sure the right timing yet, but just to think of something so positive and forward is exciting. So I think I'll leave it at that. Just there was a lot here. So if there's any other topics you want to talk on, I am welcome to talk on them.
So we're pleased that you're on that MASS committee. That'll benefit us. My first thought when I looked at your report and saw that it conformed with your goals for the current year was because you cut a broad swath, as the saying goes, would all of your activities fit under half a dozen goals? And maybe over time you'll find they don't, that you'll have some outliers to report as well. But I suspect we all appreciate the fact that you're organizing them in this fashion.
Thank you.
The committee comments on this, questions?
I have a few. So the technology committee, would there be a school committee liaison?
Initially, we've been thinking actually more the other direction of really working to bring together the technology specialists across the schools. The goal has been to get more synced up across the 5 buildings and the work we're doing right now under COVID. So there might be a time and place, but Cynthia, initially we were thinking of it's more of an internal.
Nope, got it.
Stay on track with each other. As well, very well, all the software we've onboarded, it just needs a big picture.
Is that under whose umbrella?
Kristen Herbert's going to run that.
That sounds great. Great.
In connection with Peter Kelly, of course.
Yeah. The committee to process literature materials, is that K-12?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's coming out of a need and some of our goals to bring in literature. It's more focused on literature at the moment, but it will probably include nonfiction as we go.
Yeah.
As we bring in sensitive topics, we need to have thought that through and vetted those, and the rollout is really important both for kids and families, and we see a need for more process there.
And is that again under Kristen's umbrella?
Yep. So those will be her 2 committees this year. Usually she runs curriculum-based committees. Those 2 topics have evolved as a need under COVID and inclusionary work that we're doing. So that's her goal for right now.
But I assume she's also doing curriculum coverage.
Oh, of course. Yes.
So
These are just her standing committees versus all the other stuff she's doing. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, she's got a lot. I think that's, so a couple things. Halloween.
Yeah.
I just want to make a public statement about be careful and follow the guidelines that published on the town website. I don't know if we have another posting on our website, but
I shared those in my email to the community this weekend. We'll continue. Yeah, I think you're probably right. We should put them out one more time before the Saturday. And it really is follow the guideline. It's not necessarily everyone's first choice to encourage regular trick-or-treating, but if you do it, there's some ways to do it safely.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah.
And then the one other thing as we're beginning, so perhaps we could have a little stronger statement about when people are traveling back to Massachusetts, either their business travel or college students coming back, that they really try to, especially if there's school-aged children in the household, that until they get that negative test, they try to isolate themselves as much as possible from the rest of their family. I think we're going to have a lot of college students coming back from not the states that are whatever safe. So
I'm happy to include that as a reminder. I will say, having interacted with a lot of these families, and the nurses and principals are interacting with folks who've traveled, I really feel people are complying and really careful.
Yep.
I'm so grateful for that. So, but you're right, given the upcoming time of year, continuing reminders.
Thanks.
Well, I'd like to echo what you said, Cynthia, because I think it's very hard work. I had a child come home after being away for 10 months last night, and I'm not accustomed to putting a mask on in my own house and distancing from my own family, but for 2 weeks, that's what we're going to do, and it requires real attentiveness, real caution. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Anybody else?
Yeah, just quickly, I wanted to circle back to what Dr. Hunter was saying when Amy and Linda asked about what are our plans because other districts are looking at closing for longer terms and everything. So I just first thank you for putting it out there that that's not our plan. And I also just wanted to mention it because I know, the LS, for example, is one of the ones that came out and was really looking at closing down between Thanksgiving and the holidays. Became a big debate there, I think. But I guess I wanted to point that out because I know people have asked about it. And I guess point out a difference. I know that one thing that Bella Wong, the superintendent there, had said publicly was that the reason she was thinking of it was because it would be hard to go remote on a dime. And that really pointed out to me kind of why our situation, I think at least, is different. I think our setup is basically built to be able to go remote on a dime. And so I guess I just wanted to point that out. I've given it a lot of thought myself and feel in the end very comfortable with what Dr. Hunter said in terms of let's keep everybody in as long as we can, because if and when we need to go remote, we can do it on a dime and we will. But that because of that, it doesn't seem that there's a need to, proactively close for this long period of time. So I just wanted to put that out there because I think it's something that's kind of swirling in the community and people are talking and asking questions. And so
yes, I wanted to say it to you all tonight in public. So before I sent it out to the community, and I will do that. I shared with the staff over the weekend because there was a lot of questions coming from them as well. And part of my rationale, I see a lot of conscientiousness in our community. People are being careful and taking things seriously. We're interacting every single day with families with really mild symptoms and travel and other ways they may or may not have been exposed. And it's just a lot of ongoing caution happening. And I think that makes me know that will continue. And to your point, I think we've built a model, and at some point we could talk about why we're maybe hearing some positives about our model. Part of it is the fluidity of the model, that even if you've traveled and you've got to stay home for a couple of days, the older kids can just zoom in and participate. And it's making it a simpler process. I think that we can accommodate travel, which, I think we're all hoping people are very careful about that and following the governor's recommendations today, which is really think through what you're doing, of course. But if for some reason you still choose to or do, we're handling that quite adeptly right now. And I could see that if that wasn't the case, it would be much more challenging if you had bigger numbers of people. So, and I'm just, I'm back to where I was in the summer. I'm afraid if we close, we don't know when we're coming back. And every day just is so precious. I want us in as long as we can be. So.
Lori, I just want to say that I support your decision as well, and for that very reason that we see in our town, for the conscious, we are very conscientious about the way we interact with each other and preserving the little victories that we've made, and what we have achieved in our school district, thanks to you and everyone involved, is really monumental. And I would love for us to keep the momentum. And like you said, that could change in 2 minutes from now, but we'll take it for as long as we can. And I support you.
Yeah, thanks. I think too, seeing some of the data that even we were looking at this morning as an administrative team, there are kids that remote is really hard. And that makes me fight harder for the in-person when we can and where we can. Because no matter what, as much as I celebrate, I have to still remind myself the celebration includes kids in school 2 days a week. It's a celebration, but it's still a lot of moving pieces here to make it effective. So,
Lori, I have a question. As we sort of end this, as we're wrapping up, the high school girls were saying we're nearing the end of the quarter. I know that we had initially talked about in the summer sort of having people assess whether they want to be in or out on a quarterly or trimesterly basis. And I know that you're rolling out surveys, obviously, in early November. Will any questions, I mean, I know mostly the survey is like to assess how are people feeling and how's it all going, but will there be any sort of forward-thinking questions so that we can sort of assess, are people going to sort of, change their minds about whether
what we did, to your point, Alexa, what we did was people can change to remote at any point.
Right.
That there's a lot of solvency there. People that are remote and are looking to come back, we did say we'd check in with them at the quarter. So the principals have sent a letter, an email to every family that's currently a fully remote family, and said we're doing what we said and checking in with you, and would like to encourage you to reach out to us if you're thinking of coming back. And that response is aligning with the survey. You'll remember we did a survey of the families 3 weeks ago or so. Those numbers are aligning. So we're seeing some more return at each school. We're also seeing some families who are going to stay out because that's the long-term need that they have, and a little bit in between. But we did check in with them. We're also about to do the same with the transportation, because we had said people would waive their seats till December. It will be a letter that reminds everyone that we can't take everybody back or we're in another problem. But if you really need your seat, let us know. We have had a waiting list, and we've been rolling people off that waiting list all fall. So I actually don't think there's a pent-up need at this point, Jared, because we've been able to mostly accommodate people as they've needed a change of plan. But we did say we'd check in, so we're going to do it there too.
I think the drop-off pickup situation really has improved drastically too as time's gone on, as people have become more accustomed to that. So.
Yeah, my principals are in a competitive, who gets kids out fastest mode, and they've got it. It's amazing where we started and where we are now. It's amazing. It was taking 20 and 25 minutes, and they've got it down to 5 and 6. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
Can I just also comment high level? And at the risk of sharing something that you told me, Dr. Hunter, separately and offline, the fact that other districts are reaching out to us to ask for advice, and it sounds like they're doing that relatively regularly to you.
They are.
I just want to address in this forum here and with all of us that it sounds like we are being considered a role model in this region for how we implemented this and how it's going. And I just think that needs to be said out loud, that it's your whole planning process that you started back in June, a couple of months before some districts, was well worth it and is paying off.
Yeah, and I have to just, the teachers were such a part of the vision. I think what's standing us out a bit is that we are delivering 5 days of instruction at all levels, whether it's the half days in person at the elementary or the live stream hybrid mode at the middle and high. Not everybody's doing that, and I think there's good reasons for that. And talking with other superintendents, it's sometimes the technology or whatever's in the. We don't have some limitations other districts do, but I do think that's what's getting the phone calls to me. I took one today. 5 days worth of instruction is not something everyone's able to get to, especially this soon. But so much of that was from the teacher conversation, the union, and I know a couple of them are on. The vision of the staff of what they wanted to provide for kids drove how we got here. And it's their hard work that's making it so successful. And it is hard work. We can't understate that. Everything's harder and it takes more preparation and it takes longer. And, the extra effort in the classroom is not what it was. And everyone feels like a first-year teacher. That's the line I hear a lot. But they're really working hard and it shows. So, yeah, thank you.
And it's much appreciated.
Yeah, it really is. I don't want to be glad to hear the girls are working that hard, but there's little, and to hear we're having the same stress conversation, given where we are, there's a little part of me like, wow, we're holding up such a academic program that they're still stressed. We got to fix that. Obviously, we don't want that to be the way they feel, but wow, wow.
Amy didn't say she was bored.
No. No. So thank you. We're gonna bring you some teachers to share directly here over the next couple of months, I hope.
Great.
Yeah.
Right.
Dr. Hunter, if I may add, I just wanted to say that I do feel that that hard work hasn't stopped with the planning over the summer. It still continues with all the protocols and the communication that comes out of the district regarding those single cases that prop up here and there, and then the response and the timely response that enables students to safely return to the school, and the fact that Concord and Carlisle shares the same public health nurse doing the contact tracing. It really brings up the safety and that secure, that feel more of that security feeling that there's someone that has our back and is always watching to make sure that there is no widespread community spread, that those cases are quickly isolated. We had an opportunity to sit on one of the discussions with the public health nurse and to listen to how extensive that work and protocol that she does on contact tracing to really understand where those cases come up, the links, and it's so big that it really helps. It really helps keep our schools safely open. We are blessed. We are really blessed, because it's not the case anywhere else or most places.
Thank you, Eva. It absolutely needs to be noted how well supported we are from our public health officials. It's very public when I'm engaged with them, and you can see it's at all hours and days, and it's just amazing.
And it's worth noting that because we do share the same public health nurse, when there are cases in either town, if there's any kind of overlap, while we may not be privy to the information of who's being quarantined, they are really keeping an eye to make sure that that both of the towns, that all of the schools, that all the communities are really getting the best practices and the highest level of safety. There's a very good oversight there.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hunter. Jared Stanton, we're going to turn to you. We note that it's 5:50. We've got a lot to cover tonight, so we're going to be good listeners and good questioners. I'm going to ask the committee's permission to check in with us at the 30-minute mark, see how we're doing on this, because we've got a number of reports. We're going to begin with the fiscal 20 closeout and then move to the fiscal 21 current status, if I'm correct, Jared.
So yeah, I'm actually going to present, and in the presentation is going to have all the reports and a few other things, and I'll go as quickly as I certainly can.
Well,
So,
that wasn't my point.
oh, no, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I talk too much sometimes, so.
We beg to differ. We appreciate you being here.
All right, let's see, share screen. Can you see that?
Not yet. There we go. It's coming on.
Perfect. All right. I can do this. Great. So here are the items that I'll be presenting tonight. First, I will go over. I'll go through the variance reports that come to the school committee monthly and quarterly, and the difference between the 1,000 variance report and the 100 function one. I will then go over the FY20 end of year variance reports. Then I'll show you the FY20 end of year balances and our revolving accounts and other accounts. Then I'll give the year-to-date reports for FY20. Recently, the governor released his budget, and I'll go over the impact, which was mostly positive for the region. And then I'll go over the E&D projected balance for 6/30/20. And finally, I'll give an update on the CARES Act and FEMA. So I present the variance report by DESE 1000 function once a month. I normally present the first 1,000 and 100 reports together in October. And then once a month until June. I usually don't present before October because we're still in the process of hiring through September, and it does not give an accurate snapshot of where we really are. The 1000 report is high level. It's a snapshot of where we are in the general fund at a particular time, and it's condensed to 9 DESE functional classification categories. You can find these on DESE's website, as well as the appendices of our new budget books. The 1000 report shows the detail a step further than the 1000, or the 100 report shows the detail a bit more than the 1000 function in the chart of accounts. We have approximately 52 100 types at CPS and about 55 100 types at the region. And each budget has between 400 and 500 lines. Keeps creeping up, but it's inevitable. I also need to say that this is not an exact science. Some expenditures could be charged to multiple 100 functions.
Jared, just for clarity, general fund is appropriation and operational for the instructional program and all
Correct.
Related, but not capital and not off-budget revolving accounts that are administered and overseen independently.
Correct.
Okay.
And no grants, etc.
Thank you.
Yep. So for those of you that this is your first time seeing this report, it's very easy to read. Here's our final report for CPS FY20 General Fund Budget by 1000 function. The first column is the function, and the second column is the funding description. The Concord Public Schools does not carry debt since we are a department of the town. So we have no 8000 function, which is debt retirement and service. Below the table, I'll always have a summary of the items that are in each function. So our approved budget was 39 million and change, and the adjustments will always equal the approved budget. I try to always keep our budget balanced, which is not necessarily a requirement as long as you don't overspend the bottom line at the end of the year, but it's always good practice to have a balanced budget. We make a number of transfers throughout the year, but FY20 was a year like no other. The 4000 series might stick out here because we saved on maintenance, contract services, supplies and materials, plowing, heating, electricity, and maintenance overtime over the final 4 months. There was essentially a freeze on everything. In programs with other districts, our tuition lines in the 9000 function, I charged more tuitions to the general fund, so I was able to build our circuit breaker balance. Circuit breaker is the state's, for those of you that don't know, circuit breaker is the state's special education program that was started in 2004 to provide additional state funding to districts for high-cost special education students. Circuit breaker reimbursements are for districts' prior year expenses. Each summer, districts submit claim forms to DESE listing the type and amounts of special education instruction services provided to each student during the previous fiscal year. And by law, we are allowed to carry over revenues in the revolving account equal to or less than the amount that we received that prior year. And I'll review the revolving accounts in a later slide. The next columns are the expenditures, encumbrances to date, and remaining balance. These 3 columns should always add up to the approved budget. And as you can see, we ended right at 0. So that's really good. I'm not sure if you can see these, but here are here's the same report by DESE's 100 function. For every one of our accounts, it's tied to a DESE 100 function account. We do have some accounts that are no longer a DESE 100 function, but they are closely tied to another updated function. When we do our end of year report, we do have a crosswalk. So we are reporting to the state the correct functions, and it is audited every year. Every few years, DESE updates their chart of accounts, so it's really impossible to keep up with them. You also lose account history if you were keeping up with DESE's changes. For those of you that have been on the committee for 3 years, I have said I'm going to update these chart of accounts, and I have yet to do it. But I'll say it again, we will have a little bit more of an update by end of the year. So some of these may jump off the page a bit in function 2210. School leadership, for one, we transferred 434,000. And that's mostly where the assistant principals were held, and they were budgeted in the 2305 teacher classroom function. 2330 paraprofessionals, we transferred 413,000 over the course of the year. There was more of a need for tutors and aides than what was budgeted. There was a savings in transportation across the function in 3,300. Typically, we don't budget anything for food service in the general fund because we do such a great job of it being self-funded. We wanted to continue with a healthy food service balance going into this tough year, and we charge over $217,000 at the end of the year to the 3,400 function.
Going back to your reference to audit, you were referring to a DESE audit, which is independent of our own town audit. So in fact, these numbers are audited twice independently. Is that correct?
Well, so when we meet with the town, we go over our year-end audits. So I think they're together, but it's a pretty in-depth audit from Melanson Heath, and they go to DESE. So DESE does not come out and audit it. Our auditors submit that information to them.
I understand. So it's a two-step, one audit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then, Jared, can you just clarify that the last step of the circuit breaker? Because you incur the costs, you submit the invoice, let's say, but then what is the lag between when you submit for them at the end of the summer, right? The summer after and then you see the money when?
So what we do is around budget time, we project what we're spending for tuitions throughout the year. And then we sort of pick a number, and special ed does a great job with that. What we anticipate the state to give us, whether it's going to be 70% or 65%, I actually used 60, which was low, which is good just because we had no idea of all of the amounts that are over the, the amount that basically they set forth. It's 4 times the foundation budget. So the state sets forth, say it's $50,000 for reimbursement. So any tuitions that are over $50,000, you get X amount of dollars of anything above and beyond. So if we have a tuition that costs us $200,000, we would get 70% of the difference, which is the $150,000. And what we do is we get that monies for the next year. So we incurred the cost in FY21 or FY20, and we will get the reimbursement in the following year. And what I do is I do an offset to our tuitions. So if I'm expecting $1 million in circuit breaker reimbursement for a year, and we have $2 million in tuitions, I'll either do an offset of $1 million or directly just have that money tied to the circuit breaker and not show it. But it's more transparent to show it in the budget, and that's what we've been doing the last 2 years.
So things that if it's incurred in FY20, you'll get the reimbursement in 22.
21.
21. Okay.
21, yeah.
So it's only a 1 year. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
But your point stresses why having some balance in the circuit breaker accounts is a good idea, because there is a cash flow piece there.
And when you start the budget process, you don't know what that, and it doesn't come until towards the end of the year, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. But when we did our budget last December, at that time, I did not anticipate to have anything in our Concord revolving account, circuit breaker carryover. So at that time, we basically had to charge all of our tuitions to the general fund, and then project what that offset would be, and really have no cushion. Because we did do the budget later in the year and saw our, we thought we were going to end, we were able to project having a carryover balance. And I'll go into that to offset potentially to offset FY21 expenses.
And then will we get this as a slide? Like, will we get this as a to review on our own?
Sure. Yep.
Slide.
Yeah. And what I plan to do, just so you all know, it's a lot of new terms. And when I present to the workshop in the FinCom, I'm going to be going over, circuit breaker. What is it? How does it work? Excess and deficiency, debt, etc. So I might be throwing a lot of things at you tonight, a lot of numbers, but hopefully by January 1st, you all will be pros at it. That's my goal.
We'll do our best.
Yeah. Great. So here's how we closed our revolving gift and other balance accounts. As you can see, we are in a very good spot. We were able to max out our circuit breaker revolving account. I did not anticipate that at all for CPS. This summer, July, I think I reported to you around $650,000, which was close, but we were able to get more in there. So that's really, really good. Some other ones, and this will also set us up for FY21 and 22. Other balances that I was concerned about was the food service balance. As I mentioned previously, we were able to charge some food service expenses to the general fund in order to get our starting balance for this year as close to our ending balance as possible. This one is approximately 3 to 4 months worth of expenses. And it's important to note that none of these funds can be used as a funding source to the general fund.
And there's community ed as well, am I right, as one other?
So this is just the CPS.
That's just CPS.
And I'll go over the region in another slide.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, all right, I have a question.
Please.
The dates on the top are a day apart. Is that supposed to be that way?
Nope. Good catch.
Okay.
So this one should be 6/30/2020.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't like,
Nope.
some major thing happened at the end of June. Okay.
No. Sorry, good catch. I looked at this 100 times and
Yeah. No, I get it. Okay.
great. So here's a snapshot of how we closed the region. Unlike the Concord Public Schools, we have the 8,000 debt retirement and service function, but we don't have a 6,000 function community services in this budget. We have a remaining balance of 67,993. That will go to excess and deficiency. Like the Concord Public Schools budget, the district was able to get some food service expenses in the general fund. That makes up the bulk of the adjustments here that you're going to see in the 3,000 series. Due to some savings in health insurance, unemployment, and other miscellaneous savings in the 5,000 series, we were able to make some transfers out. So at the CPS budget, if you have an ending balance, that technically goes back to the town. If you have a remaining balance in the region, because we're our own entity, that goes into E&D. So I'll always have a remaining balance in the region, for the most part. And here is the 100 report for the region. And some ones to highlight again is the food service and the 3,400. And then the 2,305. Actually, no, that didn't have any adjustments. So, but again, the FY20 was an atypical year that there was a lot of adjustments to be made. And the beginning of FY21, there will be some as well. But we always want to keep the budget balanced.
So you moved funds in such a way that the E&D is attributable to 2305.
No. Well, that's 67,000, yes. And I'll explain that actually in the E&D slide, how that 67,993 gets into E&D.
Okay.
I just wanted to leave, so we have our contingency, that's in our 2305. So when I have extra monies or have deficits, what I like to do is put things into the contingency account, sort of inflate the 2305, get everything balanced, and then when something happens or we have to make a transfer, take that out of the contingency account. So when we ended the year, I wanted to make sure every line was in balance. Previous years, I didn't do that. I did it up until June, but a lot of things happen in the summertime as well, the encumbrances, etc. So I left some in lines, and I don't know if you all remember, I got a lot of questions on why there were some balances, some in the negative. So I made sure this year that I balanced it in September to get every account at zero and put everything in our contingency. It's just cleaner. So here's how we ended our the region revolving accounts. Adult education, they went up quite a bit, which is really good. They had a successful online program during the summer and spring. There were a couple expenses that we held off on, such as a vehicle that hit the that did not hit the 63020 number. but they did end with 151 in there. Athletic revolving, while that does look very, very high, we don't have many expenses. We didn't incur many expenses in the revolving account because of the cancellation of the spring. Coaches and other things are budgeted in the operating budget. So we wanted to get this balance as high as possible. We have a couple projects that we're currently working on, such as the softball field and the tennis courts. And we did check in with the auditor about this account in the food service account, and they are okay with them having large balances this year because of the state of the union. Our circuit breaker revolving account, we have over $1 million in there, so that is maxed out. I did anticipate that, but that's an extra contingency, which is excellent going forward. And then the lunch account down at the bottom, that $384,000, that's about 5 to 6 months worth of expenditures, but we are losing a lot right now due to the a la carte sales, etc. So that will go down quite a bit, but it will get us through, I believe, the next year or two. And OPEB is over almost 5.3 million, one of the highest of any regions in the state, and that's excellent. And for the new people that don't know what OPEB is, it's other post-employment benefits.
It's your retirees' healthcare.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jared, before you go to 21, it's so important that we all continue to say out loud. Normally we use the prior year's end of year as really informative to this year and even 22. And that's not going to be the way this works this time. This is all COVID in action here. So it's going to be one of the challenges of the 22 bill, because even 21, which he's about to give you a status update on, as you know, you were here, we built it based on what we needed, and 22 is going to need to factor in so many other pieces that we're going to have to use what's there, but it won't be the foundation that it normally is, that year to year we just, as we build the real, zero-based process, we do have the actuals to work off of as cross-checks, and this, we're not going to have that in the same way. We'll have it, but with a lot of conditions to it. So that's just really different. So thank goodness we zero base, because folks who do year to year without the zero base, I don't know exactly how you do that with all this variation.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just to Jared's presentation and format on the variance reports here, I mean, if we were trying to understand the changes that had come about from COVID, the way we were looking at numbers, 3 years ago, it would be baffling. So Jared, thank goodness that you created this system and made it so clear over the past couple of years so that we can actually be looking at this confusing information through a pretty clear lens, or it would have been baffling, I think. So
Thank you. Remember that when I'm going over the FY22 budget, because comparing FY22 to FY20 expenditures, as Laurie was just saying, we're going to have to go back to really 19 and 18, especially utilities, tutors, etc.
Even the draft that we never used of the FY21 bill, I think, will be useful, because that's probably the closest, although 22 is going to have this COVID question mark over it, but we're going to need all those data points.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we have questions about FY20, is this the appropriate time to ask them?
Sure.
So just a quick question about the softball and tennis court work. Is it typical that we fund that type of work out of the revolving fund?
If it's not a capital, yes, absolutely.
What's
That's what the athletic account is for. That's where all of the user fees go in, etc. So that is.
What's the basic scope of that work?
So we're in it's repaving the tennis courts, which will be about $12,000. The softball, it's when they built the school, it was the Taj Mahals of softball fields, and we need to get back to the dirt and what it was made to be like. And we're having a study right now that Gail started this past summer, and I'll have more information to present before a final decision is made.
Okay, so that's going to be a little bit more.
Right.
And is it typical, the life of the tennis court, is that typical? I mean, it doesn't seem that old to me, but I don't know about resurfacing tennis courts.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been, the last time was 10 years. It just came about maybe a week and a half ago. I'm working on quotes with Aaron.
No, I mean, the tennis courts,
for you.
They're not more than 5 years old, right? Yeah.
5, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay.
Somewhere in there, a little older, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. All right. So here is the CPS FY21 variance report to date. A couple of things to point out, because these numbers look, high right now. But if you did do a comparison to last October, it's fairly similar, which is good. We are in balance. That's a really good thing. There's been a lot of movements. So right now we do have about $3 million as a remaining balance. That doesn't mean that we just have $3 million unaccounted for. It's just that through the course of the year, there are things that we can't encumber, and that is reflected here. Maintenance costs, even general supply costs, etc. So we're in good shape. I do want to point out that the 9,000 series, having a balanced 9,000 series, which is all of our tuitions at this time, is excellent. So we do have this negative here is because we are charging things to the circuit breaker revolving account, but they haven't been spent yet. So it's encumbered, but it hasn't been spent yet because, the November bill hasn't been paid, December bill, etc. That will go down through the course of the year to equal 0.
Okay.
And this is the 1,100 function report. The same thing, except by the 100 function, you can see some of the transfers that were made here.
I think it's worth noting that the budget that we finished in July, the pieces we couldn't predict and why there's been movement is really about the staffing, all impact of COVID, leave of absence. This story, the leaves of absences or the retirement and some of the moving pieces. The retirements we budgeted for, but the leave of absences and some other staffing changes that had to happen are pretty much all of the moves, I would think, Jared.
Right. Yep.
Not a lot else we've spent money on. So
I know.
We've been very conservative with 21, really slow to spend for lots of reasons.
Yeah. So here is the Regions FY21 variance report to date. This does have that balance does stick out. Reason for that is we usually start encumbering debt, health insurance after we close out FY20 or the prior year. So Ian is working on this right now. The next variance report in December will show this. It won't be on the November one, but it most likely, but it will be on by December. But we're in good shape here. We are balanced. The reason why we have a negative 102 in the programs with other districts is because we did move monies to the circuit breaker carryover, but there are still the circuit breaker monies come in once a quarter, and it's really not good practice to charge when the money hasn't come in yet. So we only charged what we had in the account, and then same with the grant accounts, because we use what we call the IDEA 240 grant for tuitions also. So once that money comes in, we'll move that over, and that 102 will go down. And this is the 100 report. And again, the balance here is all in the positive, except for the school security. The reason why that is in the negative is because that is our, we have an offset for the parking lot account. And we need to try to figure out why that also is negative. So it's the parking lot account, and maybe there's an expenditure in there that I need to look at. But overall, we're in great shape.
I think, Jared, some of the staff that was paid out of that account are doing more time as supervisors for us.
That is exactly it. That's where our student supervisors are put. Yep.
Yep.
And I knew that. Ian told me. Thank you.
Help us out, Laura. Is that a new and temporary?
Yeah, that's all part of the piece of managing the remote teaching and some extra support at lunch and times like that. So those are all COVID-related costs, which Jared can talk on CARES Act and how that all might play in.
And I'm going to go into that. So I'll start a little bit now. What I did do is, all of the student supervisors, which is one of our largest single cost for the CARES Act, I put the monies in the general fund right now, and anticipating maybe needing to fund those, but also in my balance for the CARES Act, I am showing them in there. And if I need to take that out of because we have more CARES Act money that we need to spend on something else, I at least have worst case scenario and have them covered in the budget.
But yeah, those are just COVID costs. Once we get back to normal, we won't need them. We've got them at the high school. As I said, the remote, anybody with a directed study or remote learning, cafeteria, bathroom monitors, that's how they're being used at the high school. At the middle school, they're actually covering classrooms while the teacher's remote and the kids are in the classroom.
And then here is just the governor's impact. Chapter 70, we knew what that number would be, so that has not changed. And then Chapter 71, we were conservative. I thought that would be something that they would reduce. They kept the FY20 number, so we're actually ahead, $92,887 there. Charter reimbursement, we were expecting a little bit more than we got. But if you can look a little below, our charter school assessment, that's a operating budget expense, is half of what we anticipated. And then our sending school choice tuition is also less than what we budgeted. So we're in pretty good shape right now when it comes to both the assessments and the revenue.
And this was last week's cherry sheet, was it not?
Yeah. Yeah. And here is our projected external revenue, circuit breaker, and this is for the region, 144,000 more than anticipated. So that's really good. Chapter 70 again was at the number that we budgeted. Chapter 71, you see it here. I did lower our rental facilities amount that I'm projecting. Just again, worst case scenario, we budgeted 20,000. I'm right now expecting 5 and hoping for more. But overall, our revenue piece is in really good shape. And that will lead me into E&D, which is really good news. So we started the year, so 6/30/2019 at 3.9% or 1.376 million. We had 569,000 of revenues in excess of the budget. Here is where the $667 left over in the general fund comes into play, minus what we used to reserve to reduce the FY21 budget, which is the 300,000, leaves us a balance of 1,714, which is 4.99%. By law, we are only allowed to have 5% of our budget. So us being at 4.99 is pretty incredible. Anything really over 3.5% is really good. But to max this out at this particular time is, it's going to set us up for a few years, if not more. So we have really, Moody's is going to look at this and it's going to be very favorable. And last but not least, it's just the CARES Act update. So starting with the region, through the CARES Act, we get $297,000. We have to use this money by December 30th. We also are getting what they're calling a DESE emergency relief amount of $26,000. We get to the beginning of FY23 to use this money. I do not anticipate to use this year and hopefully not even next year, and can use it as a contingency. You can use that money on almost anything, but the CARES Act money is strictly COVID related. FEMA, through the CPS, this is through the town, we received $92,488. We received $467,775 in CARES Act money and $112,000 in the DESE emergency relief. So to date, of the 297, we have encumbered or expended almost 210,000 of that. The student supervisors are in this number. So by December 30th, we have 87,650. There are things in the general fund that can be used well over the $87,000 that we can use, God forbid, if we needed to charge more to the grant. But I'm using this in case we have any additional funds or expenditures in the next 3 months. Again, the $26,000, nothing has been spent to date. The FEMA money has been encumbered and accounted for. And then the 467,000, 410 of that, almost 411, has been expended or encumbered, leaving us a balance of 56,000. So we are in good shape, and our tracking is all done by Ian Rames, and he's done a phenomenal job. So we will be audited on this, and we will not have any issues.
Jared, we note that Ian has joined the meeting tonight, and we would echo our thanks to him and your entire team.
Yeah. Yep. So that is it for the presentation. I welcome any more questions you have. A lot of information, a lot of numbers. I like to confuse everybody at first, so you don't have to.
Very clear.
So I'm going to give you a really obscure question just to prove to you I'll ask anything to show my ignorance. In the 5,000 category, retirement, insurance, rental, lease of equipment, RANs, bands, and crossing guards.
Yeah, the crossing guards really fit in there, huh?
Well, no, I just didn't understand RANs and bands. I think that's an acronym for something.
Oh,
way over my pay scale.
Yeah, it's for borrowing. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I should know the acronym.
Okay, well, that's all I want to know. It's an acronym. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
It's short-term and long-term borrowing costs.
Well, that's good enough for me. That I can remember. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I did have time to go through these and was looking for questions to prove to you I had done my homework, Mr. Stanton, but they were clear enough so that I didn't have to do that. I will remark that I was taken with the $445,000 in maintenance costs that we could either avoid or defer. I suppose it's some of each.
Yeah, that was a lot of just Russ Hughes being efficient. We did save quite a bit in utilities. And Russ Hughes, our facilities manager, he has great vendors he works with. There's not a lot of waste, and we were able to use that money really to offset the food service expenditures.
We knew that was an area we wanted Russ to look at. I think we named that and asked, and really part of why Russ is here is what his experience brought that allowed, we knew he'd be very capable of giving some of those costs a look. It's been on my radar for years to wonder if we could do better, and Russ proved we could. So
combination
of new eyes and new approaches and some COVID savings all in one.
One of the things you are going to notice this year and probably in next year's budget is an increased cost in the 5,000s due to utilities. We're anticipating a 20 to 25% increase this year just due to all of leaving things on 24/7, the HEPA filters, humidifiers, etc. So we will be making transfers in there, and there's going to be really no way of me knowing exactly what it is that I'm going to be budgeting for next year because I'm not going to have something to compare it to. We'll compare it to the first and second quarter of this year, but we're going to be presenting a budget really before we get the winter bills. But that is something we're keeping a very, very close eye on.
Also, one question, just speaking of savings and changes, I think it's impressive that we did have leftover from last year. I know in CPS that goes back to the town. With all of the changes last year and with us being remote in the spring, I know there were savings. Can you just kind of review for us? We did also put some of that into things that we could prepay, correct? So even after prepaying some tuitions and other things, we still had extra that we were then able to return to Concord?
No, it really went into our revolving accounts.
Oh, okay.
So for the CPS budget, anything left over would go. We didn't prepay any tuitions for the for Concord. We did for the region.
Oh, that was for the region. Okay, got it.
I think, was it the other, Laurie? Why am I
prepay?
We prepaid for the high school, I believe.
Definitely.
Yeah, the high school, and we prepaid for the computers. So any monies really went into the revolving accounts, whether it was circuit breaker, whether it was athletics, food service. Those were the main ones that we were able to put monies back into. And then we didn't prepay anything at the CPS side.
No, but you did put you put circuit breaker back to another.
With circuit breaker, right? We needed to refill exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So personally, I need to digest all this, and I might have questions at our next meeting. So perhaps we could put it on the budget to talk about 21. I think I'm all set with 20. Just about how the monies and the CARES Act, and I just need to look at this presentation and think about it a little more. So
you all have the presentation. I sent it to you while Jared was giving.
Excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
It is a lot. And that's actually the gift we have that normally we'd be, waist high in the budget process already. And we have this time to really get all on the same page and talk through where we are and how we got here. So let's absolutely utilize it.
Yeah. And one of the things on our website, just so you all know, is what I tried to do for this presentation is mirror what the FinCom asked us in their letters that we do a budget book for in the fall. There was a couple of things I didn't hit on for future years, but this is some of the things that they wanted to see. So if you go into any of our budget books, especially the fall one that we did the past 2 years, it's pretty informative. And then our spring budget book is sort of the same thing, but we break it out even more. And if you do go through those, I would love feedback in what maybe you would want to see, because I'd like to just completely dive deep in the numbers and try and present it 10 different ways, the same number. So if you want to see something, please let me know.
I just have a question about prepay in general. Do you tend to is that normal operations, or was that just because of the savings from having nobody in the building kind of thing.
This district does tend to prepay tuitions at both the CPS as well as the region.
Okay.
CPS, I didn't want to prepay. I wanted to have it in our contingency. But the reason why we did prepay the tuitions in FY21 for the regions because we knew we were going to max out our circuit breaker, and that money there would be nowhere to put it.
And do you prepay any supplies or anything, or it's just
minimal? It may be some. If I do, which I didn't much, it would be the COVID supplies or maintenance supplies. Toilet paper, etc. But you're really not supposed to. You can do that, but you can't really prepay too much with past year's money.
Yeah.
Now, prepay, I think, is on the lower rung of the list of options, but when the accounts are getting as healthy as they did because we closed, then you've got to go to that. It can be hard to track prepays budget to budget to budget, and somewhere you can feel like you're trying to catch up, and that gets really hard, which is why we were starting to lean away from it.
And it's my understanding that once you get into the cycle, you can't jump in and out.
You have to stay on the cycle, right? Or you can get really caught.
Yes. Not right here.
Correct. That's right, Sarah. Yeah.
Kind of like an E&D.
It can look like your budget numbers are going up and down.
Right.
When really it's not. It's
right.
If you understand where the numbers are coming from and how the money is moving, it's not really.
Which is why we'd always put it in circuit breaker first, because that's a better way to manage it. But at the high school, circuit breaker was maxed out and E&D was maxed out, which is only because of, it's a COVID outcome and puts us in a good stand. And it's quite a bunch of fiscal growth from where we were just a couple of years ago. So it's good news.
Thank you.
So we'll plan a follow-up in a couple of weeks.
I'll post this. I know you all have it, but I'll post this presentation on the finance page on our website.
If I can ask a novice couple of questions to both Jared and Lori. When we talk about charter and school choice, what do we mean? Are these students that are here on school choice from outside the two towns, or is it the other way? And then charter, where?
Great question.
What charter are we talking?
Yeah, great questions. Those are kids that are leaving us to go to other settings. We do not take kids into school choice. That's an annual vote that all of you will have. So that's when a Concord or Carlisle regional, depending on which district it is, if a family decides to go enroll in a school choice district, then the money follows them. 5,000 still a student, Jerry?
Yep.
And charter is the same thing. If we have students who go enroll in a charter school, then there's money that follows them. It's a little more complicated. It's a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try if you want to try. Much more complicated formula, but money follows them as well. So those are payments essentially, Fatima.
And in terms of rental revenue, are we expecting any during the pandemic?
You first. I know what my answer is.
No. That's why I lowered it from 20. So maybe that 5,000 should be zero.
Probably.
But I'm hoping COVID's going to be over by spring.
Yeah. Mr. Optimism there. I'd say no, because we'd have to let the community into the building, and I don't see that happen. Not this fiscal year, maybe 21, 22.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
We'd invite questions in between meetings too, if as you're diving in, and now that you've heard it all and go back to it, don't feel you have to wait 2 weeks either.
Thank you very much, Jared. Appreciate all the work you did to prepare for it. And again, to the team, you get the numbers as a result of your decisions and then the good record keeping of the people behind you. So thank you.
Amazing. If it's okay, I'm going to step out, but Ian is on, and he's going to answer. He can answer any budget questions if something comes up, or he can go over the electric bus results with you all.
Thank you, Jared.
Jared.
Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you.
Yeah, good night.
Jared.
So with that, we move on, Dr. Hunter, to the enrollment report, which we've all seen. If you want to give us highlights.
Yeah, I think I'm going to just highlight a couple of things. One is that overall our enrollments are very stable. That is not the case in all districts under COVID. The urbans are seeing a high flock out. So I think that's incredibly good news. The Superintendent's Association is actually starting to track ahead of what DESE's going to track with the October 1 enrollments, that, there's a lot of state aid going out the door too. So that's good news that we're as stable as we are. You'll see, I think, just quickly at the elementary schools, you'll see that we are starting to even that out in a way that I'm pleased to see the shift. You can see a year ago, we were at a 70 student differential between Alcott and Willard, and now we're within 20. So that feels much better. That happened faster than I thought, and some of that.
Why was there a reason for that, Lori, and how and why was the shift?
Yeah, it happened faster out of just straight attrition of kids, which we couldn't totally predict who was coming in and who was going out. We did intentionally, however, any incoming Metco families with kindergartners did enroll at Willard, as did any staff students. And actually, we've had more of them than usual because of COVID. So I think that helped to bump it up too.
Got it.
So, yeah. That's good news. That was a goal that needed to happen. It's happening a little faster. We'll have to watch it as we come out of COVID to see that it holds. But, and then I think just at the high school, we have to note that the enrollment drives all the assessments and the finances of both communities. So there has been a shift there, which we've made you aware of, and we'll just say it out loud for the sake of the public. Both finance committees and leaderships in both towns are aware as well. Just with the slight uptick in Concord and the slight downtick in Carlisle, it allowed for a difference that's going to result in about $426 to Concord for the assessment in FY22. So they know that already, just based on the formula that before we've even started, Concord has that increase to their budget. So,
Lori, quick question.
Yeah.
You said you put kindergarten families that were Metco at Willard, but there's no numbers that reflect that. Or did I mishear you?
No, I'm sorry, not Metco, the Muse, the
okay.
the
Sorry.
apartment
Okay.
complex. We started to read it. No, I misspoke, Alexa. I'm glad.
Okay. No, okay. Cool. Sorry about that.
What we did, and we tried to really honor the families that had kids at Alcott already. They've been going to Alcott.
Yeah.
If they had young siblings coming in, we left the families together for sure. It was new kindergarten enrollments that we put in.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So that whole does that like apartment complex get redistricted just because it's so big and there's so many people that live in that little microcosm? Like, why, for example, geographically don't those kids go to Thoreau? Is it because there's just so many? It just
the history has been that it's, and this is not atypical at all, that an apartment complex where when kids are just coming in and entering the system, it tends to be a place where districts use to balance. Yeah. And it's hard. There's no good answers there. In the past, I inherited some of that. So this is now the third school those kids have been districted to. They were at Willard. They were at Thoreau. Yeah. They grandfathered out over to Alcott. And just as we finished that grandfathered process, Alcott jumped up to 70 kids more than Willard. So it's just, you got to keep an eye on it, and so it's tricky.
Yeah.
Willard's a lot closer to the Muse.
Yeah, actually that was
you cut out.
Favorably received from the families, yes. So in a perfect world, we'll continue to try to leave them on the west side of town, right? Thanks, Alexa. I'm glad you corrected me. I just
All right. No,
totally said the wrong thing. Yep. All of the MECO kids are still at Alcott.
At Alcott, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
No, thank you. So that's just our annual review of that.
Yeah, no, I think we all appreciate the level of detail here.
Yes. And we get those monthly to our offices. So let us know if you want them at a regular interval.
And now that you're a year plus into handling the new enrollment process out of your office, are you comfortable with that?
And Erin hopped off tonight to go be with her family, but it's streamlined everything.
Wonderful.
It's really proving to be positive to have all the kids come through my office. Erin works really collaboratively with all the buildings, with ELL and special ed, and we're just doing a really good job of all knowing what's going on across different schools in a process that's the same. Requirements are the same. Families have a one-stop shop that is now electronic because we built it last spring on a dime. It's within Aspen, which has turned out to be another real positive technically, because it already starts to build the student database for us in a consistent way. Many, many positives. And now we're actually already starting to work with Carlisle on how we're going to gather registrations on the current 8th graders to be 9th graders, which has been a long time discussion point. So it's proving to be very positive.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Lori, in a normal year, we would be doing the NASDAQ projections in November. Is that still something just to?
Yeah, we've weaned off of those some. My history longitudinally is they're not super reliable. We've grown more to look at the census and the actuals within the district. Doesn't mean we discount NASDAQ totally, but we haven't used it in the way I know some districts do.
All right. Other comments on enrollment? So we're at 6:45 and a bit, but I think we're making good progress. We've got a lot more to go. Lori, we're going to go to your goals now.
Yeah, and I think I just highlight the change I made since last time. I added a line in the equity and cultural competency, just naming the goal of hiring more diverse staff. The rest is as you saw it. So I'm happy to have any other feedback. And I think I'll leave it at that since we had one conversation on it already.
One thing, Lori, that we touched on very briefly the first time we talked about it is everything, I won't even say that just that you did, but that was demanded of you and that you accomplished over the summer to launch in-person school. Mm-hmm. And was that something that you wanted to or would feel comfortable including? And I say it again as context because at the end of this year, our job is to evaluate whether you've accomplished all of your goals. And that was a huge part of the year and what you had to do. And I think we want to make sure we give you credit for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's include it. I think we just have to figure out how my goals are forward looking. So I didn't put it in here.
Right.
But yes, definitely. Let's include it.
And maybe it's even a section, preceding what you wrote. That's, summer, even if it's kind of a separate section, because these fall on. I just think it's very important to include because we asked a lot of you over the summer and you need to be given due credit for it.
Yeah, and it really has served for what we're doing now.
It's the base for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Alexa, did you have something?
No.
Okay, so Heather, I want to echo that. There, I think, has been prior discussion about the way in which the superintendent evaluation process was effectively interrupted by the close in March and how we had to modify our process. And then the question is, where do we pick this up? And I would suggest we pick it up July 1. And if that means you need to go back in time, to Heather's point, and capture, in fact, what you had decided, not alone, but you had decided as the superintendent to pursue in the spring, and then it was already rolling July 1, that certainly should show up as a dominant priority, because it was.
It absolutely was.
It was critical.
Yeah.
I will share that I had a conversation with Dr. Hunter, trying to probe a little bit as to, how do I put this? Did our health concerns, which are very dear to me, did they overwhelm our academic objectives for students? And I'm very comfortable the answer is no, that student health and faculty health and the continued functioning of the schools, in-person K-5 and hybrid 6-12 is our priority, but I'm very comfortable that it means no lessening in attention to academic goals, but it does mean that back to conversations with Amy and Linda earlier tonight, it's not going to be the hill we die on as a school district. Instead, health and safety, physical and emotional and social are the ticket to any academic progress this year more than ever.
Right. And you have to remember, the methods in which we're using to accomplish everything is so different. We may not cover everything, but we're going to cover the important things, and we might do it differently. The English class may read a few less novels, but still cover all the skill sets, So that's the work that I think we're going to hone in on. And we've had some conversations already with teachers, and Kristen's going to lead a lot of this, but just how do we capture that? Because it's not the same, but the bar is still, we're still accomplishing an awful lot, well beyond the DESE frameworks, well beyond, the required quote unquote curriculum. We're still in our Concord level of expectation, but different, and maybe not the same, and maybe not as much, but I think we're all still feeling good about what we will accomplish this year. Now that we've got a couple months under our belts, it feels like we can aim still quite strong, even if it's not the same. So.
So we'll stay on this subject for another minute if you have questions, but let me put this forward now, if I might, on behalf of Sarah and myself, and that is the idea that the sooner this school committee gets the evaluation rubric in front of us, the better it is for everybody, because we have a set of goals, but then we also have a rubric that we use to then examine achievements around these goals. A few people are very well versed in DESE version 2 of their new version of superintendent evaluation rubric, but notably Cynthia and Heather, I think are most familiar with it. And I wonder, Heather, could we ask you if it is suitable, by the committee to bring to us at a future meeting the current DESE rubric and any recommendations for how it might be modified for Concord Carlisle, if at all, and B, a process by which we would use it.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be happy to do that. I also think it would probably be helpful, especially since several people here haven't used either this one or the other in the past. If you'd like, I could do just a quick high level of what's different in the 2019 version from the last one that we had all used since 2012.
Yeah, so we have that whole context when you bring it to us. That'd be good.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can do a quick high level of the rubric and evaluation form, the differences in the new one, a recommendation of what we should use, and maybe also a recommendation of just kind of outline process.
Mm-hmm. conversation none of us have had yet, Sarah. What would be suitable timing? A month out, perhaps? We'd have Heather bring this to us.
Yeah, I was just writing down, try to figure out best ways to put this in the schedule. I mean, I think a lot depends on Heather's ability to produce. I mean, that's a lot of content she's produced.
That's okay. I can pull that together for either meeting in November.
Excellent. Okay.
So why don't I plan to have it ready for the first meeting in November, which I think is the 10th. And then you can slot it in either then or the 17th, wherever it fits based on agenda planning.
Yeah. And when we talk on Thursday to start planning the next meeting, and
Right, we'll sketch it out.
yeah.
Yeah, then let me know, but I'll plan to have it ready.
Yeah.
So I would just ask informally if everybody supports that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Heather.
Sure, happy to.
I think my one last comment might be that, goals might need to get reviewed. We always do it in January, but to what degree they may need to be revised, maybe different this year. We'll have to see how the next couple of months go. I know you know that. I just feel better saying it out loud.
Yes.
Are you asking all of us to continue to be flexible?
That's exactly. Thank you.
Notice I didn't use the word pivot. Whoops.
That was my, these might have to change comment, but
yes.
Heather, there's a 6 months review that we're supposed to sit down and do just to, as a school committee, to review the goals of the school committee and also do pre-evaluation of what we are, where we are heading in terms of goals for the superintendent.
Yes, and I'll plan to include that as part of the process. So I think of the process as really not just at the end of the year, but the process starting now, which includes tracking goals, doing a mid-year touch point. And I think at that point, to Lori's point, at the mid-year touch point, that's when we need to look at, are these goals still headed in the right direction? Do we need to shift the trajectory at all? And do just kind of a touch base on where we are and then keep moving forward. And then I'll outline the process through the end of the year also.
Good. Anything else on Dr. Hunter's goals?
Only just quickly process-wise, Lori, are you going to add something about the summer and just share it with us all, or should we just?
Yeah, why don't we start there and then go from there?
Okay, great.
6 months is December, so it's not.
Exactly. So when we say mid-year, we usually shoot for January.
Okay.
Now, granted, usually we're not in the middle of a budget development in January, which we will be this time. But I think this is something, it's not going to be a big, huge project.
No.
I think it still makes sense to do this January, to do kind of mid-year review.
I do. I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Sarah, might we move on to our goals?
I think so. I think probably everybody's read them. Everyone gave some great feedback on them. Maybe if I just screen share where we are right now and quickly go through, and if there are any dates or key items that need calling out attention to. That sounds like a fair.
If we can quickly make you host, otherwise Lori or Aaron will bring them up on the screen, whatever's easiest. Yeah.
She should be all set, I think.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sarah.
Yep, share screen. There we go. Okay. So our sort of the umbrella that we need to look at everything, I think, this year is in the COVID-19, right? Having a safe and successful educational experience while mitigating, addressing, and responding to the health risks and equity challenges in the public schools. So feedback here was that we should think about making this rather than just supporting, because we do support like that, our job is to support, but maybe to make it more precise what's the vehicle through which we're supporting. So I just added a little bit about support school community safety practices through policy work, the delivery approaches through superintendent collaboration or communication and evaluation, support the fiscal management through budget work, support educational equity through cultural competency work, monitor educational delivery for non-traditional learners and students receiving special services was something just recently added, and identify key takeaways and lessons learned to enrich the school experience going forward. Does this address the issue of making it more our activity behind, you think, or were you?
I would offer up that we know that we have to do real work, and we know the work that we're charged to do. My thinking was the casual reader might think that support meant cheerleading, and so what you have done is made very clear that the word work is integral to our role. So I think it's helpful what you did.
Okay.
I have a question. After that workshop last week, I'm wondering about bullet point number 1, 2, 3, 4, that new one about monitor educational delivery. Is that like too in the weeds for us? It seems real specific. I'm just asking. It might not be. It might be fine, but it just like I'm thinking like, are we really going to do that? And if so, like, how as a member would I do that? And I can't off the top of my head think of how I would.
Well, the form it would take for me, because I did think about this one, although perhaps we could make big changes here, but I was thinking that in a very unusual, very stressful year, I would like to call upon Dr. Hunter a little more frequently than usual to ask her how this school district is doing with the hard to reach student, with the student having a difficulty with the remote medium, with the student who might in a normal year be receiving significant support services. How have those been modified, compromised, changed this year? I think she's doing this anyway, but in fact, we know she is, but.
According to Alexis's point, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't understand how I can, at the end of the year, say how good a job we did on monitoring educational delivery.
I wonder if it's a word choice. The word monitor jumped out at me a little too. I mean, really what we need to do is maybe it's understand, which is through discussions with our superintendent. We're obviously not each individually going to be monitoring educational delivery, but we want to understand how it's going. Maybe it's support again, through discussions with the superintendent. So I don't know, maybe it's just that word.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand. I think like it could be seen as that we are trying to make sure that when we get reports from Lori, when we listen to what's going on in the school, that we are remembering the totality of the student body, right? That we really need to keep a focus also, keep the attention on also non-traditional learners, there are so many students experiencing education in so many different ways right now.
I think the spirit of it is great. I was just literally talking about how do we,
So
it's
support again? Support?
It's an understanding, and it informs our choices regarding policy and budget.
I'm thinking check-in as well. Maybe it's less invasive. Check-in or report, just to stress that it is included in the report specifically.
I actually like understand, because to Cynthia's point, we have to understand this because it informs our discussions of other things like policy. And like you said, Sarah, I completely agree with the spirit of it. I think it is just important that we make it clear what we're doing.
Okay.
What about track?
I'm at support because by the fifth bullet, you understand what support means. And
that's true too.
Or what about even like track? I'll be honest, I Googled synonyms, but like per monitor, just, I don't know, like keep abreast of, track, something. I don't know. I hate to see support. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter.
I have the same concern with the next.
What?
I could say I have the same concern with the next bullet because we don't enrich. We assist with budget and policy, but it's Dr. Hunter's job and her team and the school's leaders to enrich the school experience. And it seems pretty soft. I just don't know how it would at all measure how we did on that one.
well, maybe what I'm hearing is monitor could be understand or support, and identify could be understand.
I think that makes sense, understand, because it's something that Lori's going to bring to us.
Right, because I would think it's going to be through surveys and a whole bunch of tools.
And I would also ask, since a lot of what we're now writing out for us, Lori, depends on you communicating to us, do you have thoughts on what is realistic in terms of these wording here, the wording that we're debating?
I've been thinking about this all day because we started our day on this page. It is the wording that I knew you were going to land here just based on my conversations.
Right. And you get the spirit. It's all in the right spirit.
I mean, I almost wondered if you could make it more literal of receive reports, and then you can measure how often we bring you that information and you can hold us accountable to do that. I started to go, that's a very different direction than where you are in support and understand. So that's been a little that's where I landed today as an option, maybe.
So maybe two last bullets into sub-bullets into something that's just an overarching thing about understanding. So receive the reports to understand something bigger.
And you could even put a timeline on how often you want reports, and then it really is a SMART goal kind of mindset. But
yes, I think Laura, you hit the nail on the head, the SMART goal. Yes. So yeah. I'm having a hard time with the word understanding, and as a bullet under actions, it's not really an action. And we're looking to be specific. So that's why understand is not sitting very well with me. I'm looking for something, again, that's specific. So making it a SMART goal, I think would be super helpful for everybody.
I like Sarah's suggestion of combining those last two under one. And I like receive reports. So maybe it's the last bullet is receive reports to understand. And then you can have,
those two are not necessarily related completely, but I do agree with Fatima that understand is not really is not a goal. It's not an action goal here, but we do want to track or keep track of the takeaway lessons as the students' educational experience will change during the pandemic. And we do want to, as a school committee, understand and know which practices will add value in the future and whether technology or which technologies or things that we have done during this big pandemic experiment didn't necessarily pan out to be that successful and helpful to our students. So I don't know if they're definitely not an understand. And in terms of receive reports, that's much better than showing support. And those two are not necessarily related to each other. I have a question. If you go back to support educational equity through cultural competency work, we talked about educational equity we're trying to keep that as a broad spectrum, not just cultural competency, but also we're thinking about students that are special education students. So I wonder if you could explain what do you mean by cultural competency work supporting the education equity?
Who are you asking?
Well, I'll tell you, my take on it is that our cultural competency work around inclusion and understanding differences supports educational equity, that one leads to the other, that outcomes will be, the gaps will be fewer in achievement across our student population if we do our cultural competency work. Is that your take on it, Lori?
I think in general it is. It's about, understanding differences and appreciating them, right? But also understanding the impact it has on academics and instruction, as well as social, emotional, and inclusion, all of those pieces. And I think that one is broken out, Eva, there because of our work right now, specifically on racism and anti-racism. And I think the one above it with special services is meant to be more connected to special education. So maybe that needs a little wordsmithing, but that was my interpretation.
So what if we put receive the reports about educational delivery and understanding the key takeaways, and receiving reports on the takeaways and lessons learned under the support responsible educational delivery approaches?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's essentially that's what we want in our communications with the superintendent. We want to understand these things.
Right.
Yep.
Like that.
I was going to suggest the same. Awesome.
And then support educational equity through cultural competency work. And then
would that also be an inclusion or no?
It could be, because our strategic plan does group those together in the initiative.
I think they are in the in the actual further down. They are under that whole. There we go. Yeah, because we have provide leadership to achieve district cultural competency, equity, and anti-racism goals and objectives. And we have in there the, that's the action plan. Cultural proficiency. Yeah, that one we need to look. We'll get to, okay.
I think that fixes it, Sarah, if we just add the inclusion in there. It will match up.
Okay, so support educational equity through inclusion and cultural competency work. Yeah. Okay. We're not voting on this today, right? So we'll see. But does everyone's more comfortable with this language now? Okay.
And we're going to review these in January, right? See how they're working.
and yes, we ask for flexibility and justice. Right.
And I remember that we've struggled with this same work in the past. Yep. And I think, Heather, it might have been you who a year ago advised us at a certain point we have to accept that these words become lenses for us. I think that was your term, that the words might not be perfect for all 7 of us, but they're perfect in that they make very clear what's important. And beyond that, we all know what our charge is and what our legal mandate is. and our interrelationship with Dr. Hunter and her team. So at the end of the day, we need a set of priorities, and this serves as a set of priorities that sits next to her goals, that sits next to the strategic plan.
Yep. For the budget, I mean, normally are these all read aloud as we go through? I mean, the budget there really wasn't, I mean, other than adding the budget training session, but that I actually added into community engagement later on, the budget workshop. Other than that, and adding some more specific dates.
What's the difference between a known unknown and a variable? Aren't they kind of the same thing?
I think the variables are the ones that, well, I feel like the variables are things we know there's a range of, and then the known unknowns are ones we really just don't even know what's gonna.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, we can.
I know I can cite COVID as an unknown. It's never a variable, but I think
Is it COVID just the exactly fun one?
Just no, just
variable.
The variables, again, as you said, Sarah, we have a range or some expectation of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be fussy and suggest we might identify the potential unknowns. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah. I like that better, maybe.
So just scratch all of that.
I'll just change. I mean, to me, I paused on what's a known unknown. Now I can make sense out of it. I can parse it, but I can parse it faster if it's potential unknown.
Agree.
Okay.
Looks good.
All right. Court.
Yeah.
Anything on the Concord Middle School project?
Well, if you wanted to be more specific, it would be resume and complete feasibility stage and begin schematic phase.
Okay.
I mean, if we wanted to just lay it out very
stage.
Very matter-of-factly.
Resume and complete feasibility stage and
for phase and begin schematic phase, design phase. You agree, Lori?
Yes.
Then everybody knows that that's what's happening right now, we hope.
And there aren't any dates or any.
No, that's going to be a
Not
little.
yet.
Yeah. I mean, we're hoping to get started.
General.
We're not going to be at any town meeting this fiscal year if
Right.
if
I
that's-
think that makes sense to leave it relatively high level the way it is because we have to define everything else within that.
For that second bullet, what about something, I don't know why you guys am having such a bad reaction to this support verb, but what about ensure feasibility and schematic design phases are in line with educational vision, sustainability goals, and budget goals rather than that support again?
It's not really our committee. We work for our two representatives, so
okay,
we should all have a
I get it.
strong, paying attention. But it's really a Concord Town Committee. It's not even like a building committee of the Concord.
No, you're right.
And we might even speculate that our unique role is going to be to push the educational vision part of this dynamic because it is going to be a dynamic process trying to achieve most of what this school district wants. and this town wants.
Mhm.
Okay. So people are comfortable with the, okay. Policies.
I should have said this earlier, Sarah. I don't think we need to say form because it's ongoing.
Well, didn't we form a new one this year?
Yeah, but we'll do that with various things.
I think we assigned new people to it, but the policy subcommittee has existed for a while.
Right.
Okay.
To convene, maybe.
Yeah. Reconvene policy subcommittee. I mean, it has been a big hiatus. Yeah. Good.
Okay. Policies are on the agenda for today. Implement or adapt the new DESI evaluation format.
Can I go back a little bit? Sorry,
Yeah.
go back to policy.
Yep.
I think it'd be a little clearer to the rest of the world under bullet number 2, where it reads, instead of adhering to typical, instead of a sequential policy review, because I think that's what you mean, is you're not simply doing A followed by B followed by C, you get to J and you start over again. Does that work for people?
Yep.
Yeah. Is that how you tend to do it? Is by the...
Well, yes, because we have to go identify which ones haven't received attention in a long time, or which ones might have legal references that are no longer valid. And the way to do that is just to comb through it. Number 1, followed by number 2, followed by number 3, which to your wording here gets preempted when we say, hey, this one needs attention for another reason.
Okay.
You've got
So in
attention.
Carlisle, we have the policies sort of organized by date. And so then we sort them by the oldest and just sort of group together the oldest and look at.
And we can't do that because ours live in a Maxi website, which makes them very accessible, but not very
not sortable,
manageable. Yeah, at the local level.
All right. So yeah, so a sequential policy review schedule. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I go back to the word convene and perhaps set a goal to actually set a calendar, if we can, for the subcommittee, the policy subcommittee, at least?
I think you'll do that when you first convene. What you'll do is you will elect a subcommittee chairperson and set your calendar and set forth your priorities for the year. So I think that will immediately happen, Fatima.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that's the subcommittee that looks at what's a reasonable schedule and what's a, yeah.
Just by way of example, we met once a month, Thursday mid-morning, because we had to find when could Dr. Hunter do it, when could Dorothy Presser do it, when could the school committee members do it. So you'll have that same discussion, I think, and probably need to try to achieve a monthly in order to make the kind of progress that you want to make, because it's a very time-consuming, sometimes tedious job.
So it's okay?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Superintendent support and evaluation. And we have in here the implement or adapt the new DESI evaluation format. Assess and evaluate the superintendent's progress. I mean, does all of Heather's work fall under the? Is that all? I feel that Heather's doing more than just implementing or adapting, right? We're doing actually like a review of the, do we want to reflect that somewhere in here?
You could. I mean, it's all in. I will make a recommendation, which we will then all discuss in order to decide which version to implement and adapt, or to adapt and implement. But So you could put more detail, but in the end of the day, the goal is to implement an evaluation form.
Court, what do you think?
I'm content with it.
Okay. All right.
If you want to add something to timing about, conduct a review or a review of evaluation forms in November, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea. We ran out of time last time.
We have review evaluation forms. We have January, February. We have the goals check-in, and then we have the end of year evaluations.
Do we want to put a time frame on when we would begin that, or we can add that in some other time? Is it in May?
Oh, begin the end of year
Correct.
evaluation part, you mean?
Yes. Do we typically do it in May, or?
We typically
say we're going to do it in May and then we do it in June.
Yeah, right. But we typically at least start the process in May. Sometimes we start talking about it in April.
Be flexible.
Yes. I mean, we could put a date here, or when I bring a recommendation in November, I can bring a recommended schedule and we can discuss it.
Why don't you do that?
Yeah.
I'd recommend that. I feel like we're scrambling at the late hour most years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my thought of putting the key dates and timing in here is less to have it be like a fixed thing right now, but just at least a point of reference for all of us.
Right.
As we go.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Yeah. So
To that point then, Sarah, why don't you
it
just
should be a living document.
I can't see people, so I can't tell.
What?
For the policy, why don't you just put a placeholder that since there's no chair, I have to convene the policy subcommittee so we can make the schedule. So why don't you put that? I'll do that.
Superintendent convene policy subcommittee?
Yeah.
Or down below, better yet. Yeah, fine. Good.
And
Is that a November activity?
Yes, let's say it's a November activity.
okay.
And for superintendent evaluation, we can already complete the first COVID summer evaluation.
Yes.
Community engagement, I just got a little more detailed into how to foster the communications with Boston, Carlisle, and Concord families, and Concord Carlisle school boards and committees and METCO by appointing liaisons and ensuring regular accessible communications with the community through public meetings, participation, forums, hearings, virtual coffees.
Very good.
And added also expand community and committee member understanding of practices and training to sort of under this whole transparency, community engagement, communication, like just to make it, more. So we have our MASC workshop. We have the manual review, and we have, we have to talk about if we want to do cultural competency training that I guess you guys did in 2017. So does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
I had a quick question regarding that equity and cultural competency, because in November 7th is the MASC conference, right? And they have a particular lecture on that to members attending. Are we able to get notes, or are we able to follow up on that with the participating school committee member?
Anyone can participate.
So we can listen in.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's a good clarification. Thank you.
Will they be available? Do we now have other recordings going to be available?
That's
They
a good
haven't
question. We have to
said, but we assume so. I wonder under the second bullet, foster,
Mm-hmm.
might there be a third sub-bullet? Collaborate with before you put it in, just
I know I'm putting it there to put out your words.
I forget Mr. Lucy's title, but collaborate with communications
director or whatever it was.
communications
He is
consultant.
our chief information officer on his, which is a big title for very little stipend, but that's CIO is what's on the document that he signs every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would leave the name out.
Okay.
Just because we don't have any other names in here.
Okay.
I put parentheses, information officer. Or that, yeah. For media relations, because that's the collaboration, I think.
Okay.
Lori, can you think of a way to clean that up? Is that okay?
I'm just wondering how it fits in with the first one. That's the keep the community, because the first bullet, the first upper bullet,
fits better there.
Is our outward, is the how we push information out. Where I was thinking the second one.
Yeah, Lori does that.
Dialogue.
You're right. Lori does number 2, and we foster it, but she does it. Yeah, you're right. Forgive me.
But I can put it somewhere up. I mean, I think it should be noted, right?
Maybe sub-bullet there. You already have the sub-bullet format going, so.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, there was conversation also about to what extent do we use social media, and do we want to have somebody on the committee engaged in any kind of.
I have actually a question before we get to that, Sarah. So when our goal is to keep the community up to date on school-related developments using the following sort of essentially listservs, does the chair do that? Like, should we even be more specific? Like, who's doing that? And I guess we don't need to specify it, but, and are we sending, I don't know, different relevant information to different groups? Or is this sort of the blanket list of sort of distribution lists that we push our data out to or push our information out to?
I can jump in here because that's something that I've worked on and tried to streamline for a while. Yeah. Erin does have a distribution list that includes most of these organizations. So sometimes we can do it through Erin, but in terms of managing, the first step before that, the challenge has been really always been managing what is it that we want to send out and who has that responsibility to say, okay, this is an important nugget information that needs to go out to groups. I've kind of managed that for a while as chair. So I think it's essentially a chair job unless the chair then asks someone else to do it. But yes, it is something that someone should be monitoring and owning.
Right.
To figure out what information needs to go out and when.
Right. And even sort of ascertaining what is the relevant information. Like, I think it's almost a two-step process, identifying what we want to communicate and then actually doing the pushing of that.
Exactly.
Is it a press release? Is it sometimes it might be an agenda, but.
Yeah.
Tom actually does help with some of that.
Right. I was just going to say, Tom does help with that. But I think it's important for the chairs to be part of that analysis and coordinating with Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He never does it in isolation.
Oh, right. I mean, he certainly doesn't.
I feel like it's one of those things that maybe it's just because I'm new, but potentially if it's not laid out specifically, like who's going to, could it get lost in the shuffle, I guess?
It absolutely can. So yeah, I think we should specify that's basically a chair job unless otherwise specified.
Unless Court starts crying because he's overwhelmed.
Or he delegates, which is what a good chair does.
Alexa.
So do we want to have something about identify the information that we want to share, or do we just want to leave it to collaborate with the CIO?
I don't know that we need to spell it all out. I think in order to fulfill this objective, we all need to, specify, we all need to have a plan of how we're going to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you want this tighter with more safeguards, you collaborate with the superintendent and the CIO, which you do anyway. But if you want it explicit, you put it in there. Because we don't like surprises, and Lori doesn't deserve surprises.
Yeah, and I guess you're right. It doesn't have to be on the goals. I guess I'm just sort of professing my sort of nerves that because I'm new, I don't know how that works.
It's a very good question because it's an area that has.
Well, I think it really is unique to the message and the audience. You asked earlier, I think, Alexa, are they somewhat communications designed for a specific one of these? And the answer, I think, is yes. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then for social media,
Well, I think the only social media presence is principals and superintendent, not school committee. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, right now, yes. If it was to be anything else, then it would be a separate sub-bullet under there for somebody to, take on social media research and report back so that we could all decide if we wanted to do something else. That has been done in the past, as in the research and reporting back, probably a few years back now. And it was decided to not get our hands messy in it because it was so hard to manage some of the factors.
How, Lori, I have a
always change. If people feel like we need to discuss that again, that could go back on here.
Well, one of my always gripes, and you guys might all be like, oh my God, don't invite this, but I am sometimes disappointed at lower levels of engagement among citizenry. And so my only thought about the potential use of social media, the successful potential use of social media, is even just using it to communicate our agendas, our meeting time, and or highlight, because I'm thinking as a parent, I don't know, the PTG doesn't always put that in their weekly newsletter. Or if they do, there's so much other stuff in there. It's at the bottom. I don't know. That was my only thought. Is there a way to?
I think there is. I think other committees put out a Facebook page that doesn't allow, I wouldn't allow interaction and comment. It's just pushing out. But somebody has to build it and own it and decide what content's going to go there.
We did in Carlisle, the school committee has a Facebook group. You can follow the Carlisle School Committee, and it is just for agendas or critical information. But I think that we've found it's actually that in the end now, I believe the PTO, the president, she posts that more. They have a bigger following than the school committee does, we could say. So I think, I don't think anybody's actually managing our school committee one right now, because it does get unwieldy, and there are so many other places. Because you need to get the people to follow you, you need to, and if it's not an engaging kind of group, right? So if it's the regional or the Concord School Committee, and you can't have any kind of interaction, you can't have anybody posting anything, you can't have anybody really.
Yeah, so it ends up being kind of a boring account.
It becomes a boring thing that yeah.
And it
But-
grew in, and it grew in Carlisle kind of organically. We didn't vote for the PTO's president we didn't go out and specifically sell her out. So so that engagement grew organically, and she does post all of our meetings. We do have increased participation, but it has to do with the fact that it just grew organically, grassroots sort of, especially in this COVID era. When questions would come up, she would point to the agenda items, but the school committee members would not answer. We would just post the time of the agenda, yeah.
And that's a become a place people will ask questions, such as what happened in today's emergency meeting? And there'll be a dialogue. Then obviously we don't participate in, but it's sort of overseen by the parents, by the PTO.
Can I recommend, this might be an interesting conversation, but I don't know that we're going to define much here as we try to establish a goal. Maybe we just leave it there, but at some point during the year, like this might be something, you know, Alexa, if you have interest and think there could be opportunity for us.
I do, Heather, and then I think I probably don't. But yeah, I know I go back and forth.
Who knows? Just something that I think, you know, we could always look into it and bring back some type of a recommendation. But I would say we don't include it as a goal, as something specific here that we haven't really defined yet.
Should we then take it out?
Oh, I don't think take it out of the list.
Okay.
Well,
I'd
I
be
think the question
content.
came up because we have it on the list. And so is it something that really should be there?
Well, right now it's an unmet goal because we haven't endorsed a plan to do it. So.
well, I don't think so necessarily. We do send out information through social media indirectly because we will take information and give it to Erin to distribute in all of the ways that she has, and she uses the district social media sometimes. So our information does sometimes go out through social media. So I would leave it there.
Okay.
And then if there's, you know, if someone wants to look into utilizing social media more deeply or effectively, we could look into that. Someone could look into that. But I wouldn't specify more detail now until we have some type of a recommendation.
Yeah, and we don't want to get much farther into this. I just sit here wondering if you could tap into some of the active, my account, where we do have a lot of following, and I just start embedding more of your school committee materials into that, just because it'll get more visibility. Maybe it's not as hard as it sounds. Right?
No, that's great. Okay, great.
So this, the last bullet with the expand community and committee member understanding of practices and training through MASC workshop, budget workshop, manual review. Are there any other, well, one, do we want to talk about cultural competency training? And two, are there other workshops or things that we think should be included?
And this side, go ahead, Court.
Well, we're going to look at MASC resolutions shortly, and in those resolutions, it is suggested that we promote anti-racism work, and MASC language refers to the idea that quote, all district staff, including school committee members, receive professional development on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're making the statement later on tonight that we want a delegate to support that, perhaps. That's one of the resolutions in front of us. So I bring that up simply because what we say here should be roughly aligned with that if we go that way. And I'm not presuming we will, that's a separate conversation, but I wanted you to know it's coming.
I guess maybe my point here might be similar to the last one, which is I feel like a little bit, to some extent, I'm feeling like I know we have other things to get to, and I don't think we should spend too much time on each individual thing here. And maybe that's something that we can discuss at another point whether or not we're doing that, but just kind of reference the possible trainings or something.
Goals aren't promises.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I think there's an opportunity there. And Sarah and I had a little side when we were connecting about these earlier last week, as I checked in with each of you. You know, it might be really helpful to have an hour or two with Paula Martin, who's our, EDCO consultant, and have her have the conversations with all of you that she's having in other settings. I think it might help sync everybody up on the way we're talking about anti-racism and some of the, so I think there's some great options there that I know all of you as a committee, I can tell would be very engaged in. So might be a
good.
I think that'd be great. So let's keep it there as a reference, and we don't have to define in detail what we're doing now.
Yep.
Yeah, Lori, thank you for bringing that up. I've been meaning to meet her for the longest time.
And you're not only going to learn a lot and take on a lot of topics, you're going to have fun too.
Yes, that'll be a wonderful initiative.
A package of everything.
That'd be great.
Okay. So is everyone comfortable with community engagement, communication, and transparency?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cultural competency. That, well, I can take that out of here. Do we want to have our own learning experience? Talking about that elsewhere. Are there other thoughts on the actions in progress here? There's a little bit of wordsmithing that happened, but other than that, no significant changes.
I think it looks good.
Okay. And then we're at the last one. Contract negotiations.
Yay!
Yay!
I would just jump in and recommend here, right, you have timing, key dates start ASAP, and I think that's it. I just wanted to make sure we point out that this is a lot more contracts than we typically or ever negotiate in 1 year. And instead of doing the contracts in the second half of the year like we usually do, I think we need to spread them out over the course of the year, or we're just going to drown when we start.
Yeah, the first round of when I was talking with Lori on these at first, I was missing quite a few from that list.
And I
already thought it was a long list.
Yeah, and I do think we might need a creative approach here, because we've pushed the whole budget off till the second part of the year. So negotiating contracts while we're so uncertain about money is going to be tricky. So I think it's going to take a strategy session perhaps. And obviously we need the unions engaged with that and need to reach out to them. But yeah, it can't all sit until May and June.
No, I even feel like we should be starting to talk about this, at least to draft a potential schedule of which ones we do when, or which ones we'd like to ask those units to look at when. I feel like we should be starting that discussion in November even.
Conscientiously divide everybody, negotiate, so I mean, some of us have never really been through negotiation, and so we'll need a little prep time, I think.
Yeah, and I think it'll be important that for each one, we're going to have to lay out who does each one, and I think we'll want to have teams that can work together so that those who are new can work with someone else on maybe a smaller contract and meet up. So that'll take some sketching out.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us to the end of that.
Yes.
Right? Yay.
Thank you for pulling all of this together.
Yes. Thank you very much. I think they look great.
Thank you.
Really good.
I can't get my screen out of here.
So process, bring these back for formal adoption. I don't recall it was an action item for tonight.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not on for tonight, but I would say we, in practice, adopt them as of now and then vote it in next time. I mean, we're already working on these things, but just so that we all know, okay, these are our goals.
Oh, okay. Just to sort of say, let's get started.
Right, exactly. We're on the same page, unless there are any, major points of feedback that come in between now and then, but yeah, we can adopt them next time.
Okay.
All right, so that brings us to the MASC resolutions. First, let me say that reading the small print for the annual meeting, it reads somewhere. No, I don't have chapter and verse here, but I have been informed that in 2020, specifically, regional school districts should have their own delegate for voting purposes. So I don't know who else saw that text, but if you didn't, oh, here we go. There is a limit for each school committee to one vote. There are some members who sit on two boards because they represent regional districts who are elementary and high school are governed by separate school committees. Quote, in 2020, each school committee should have its own delegate, close quote. So we have Cynthia who's going to be attending and will be delegate for either Concord or Concord Carlisle, which means we need a second person who intends to attend virtually November 7 and be there at the 1 o'clock special session where the resolutions are going to be debated and voted on. So we need a person to do that. And then we need to have sentiments about these resolutions. I don't think we need to vote them up or down, because if we do that, we render the delegate unable to know what to do should there be amendments. I think we've got to give the delegates our sense of our prevailing opinion about these and then entrust them with the responsibility. I'm curious if others think that sounds like the way to go.
Yep.
So to the first order of business, who's going to be there on the 7th, and would you take on the delegate role?
I can't do that timing.
I can't do the timing.
I was planning on attending virtually, so if no one else, I'm happy to take one.
All right, and you'll be there for the 1 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay. So I will be there at the meeting, but I won't be a delegate. That's great. What I will do, if everybody agrees, is send in the delegate form again. Let's see, hope I'll make the deadline, but I'll send it in again with both names. We sent it in prior with Cynthia's name indicating it was both districts. They didn't kick it back to us. So I'll get that out tonight.
Thank you.
So I can read all of these, but I certainly don't want to. Resolution number 2 is COVID state funding, resolving that the state, quote, guarantee every school district full reimbursement, close quote, ... for COVID-19 expenses. It's a no unfunded mandate resolution. We've discussed this earlier, and we're of a mind that there are districts that are in need far more than we are, and they deserve our support. Stop me as I go. Resolution 3, School Committee Anti-Racism Resolution. And the resolution is, quote, that all school districts in the Commonwealth should guarantee that racist practices are eradicated and diversity, equity, and inclusion is embedded and practiced for our students, families, faculty, and staff. School committee members should ensure that our school culture and that of every district in the Commonwealth is anti-racist and that acknowledges that all lives cannot matter until Black lives matter, close quote. So I'm skipping all the explanation and giving you the resolution. That one, I think, is a significant and ambitious one. Resolution 4, lowering the voting age for municipal elections. This is something a previous chair, Bob Grom, worked on. For some time, he was seeking a local age 17. This seeks a statewide age 16. Let's see. Resolution that the sponsors call upon the Mass Legislature to pass the Empower Act and take other means necessary to allow cities and towns to establish a minimum voting age of 16 for all municipal elections. So note it's municipal elections, local elections. Stop me if you want. Resolution 5, in supporting increased federal support and stimulus funding for public K-12 education. The resolution being that MASC, quote, align with state superintendents of schools and urge the Massachusetts congressional delegation and state legislators to advocate for and approve additional education funding for our nation's public schools through the enactment of progressive tax legislation. Number 6, retention of Medicaid revenue. Resolution that MAXI urges the general court to require that 100% of Medicaid reimbursements to cities and towns be provided in full to the public schools of each municipality through a school district revolving account to underwrite the cost of providing an adequate education. So it would move monies from a town coffer to a public school budget.
Revenues that the schools generate.
Yes, correct. Thank you. 7, attempts by United States Department of Education to direct funding to private schools. Resolution that MASC petitioned the AG of Massachusetts to review and recommend to the Executive Office of Education and the Mass Department of Elementary Education to review the formal language of such statutes that determine the distribution of federal funds to benefit economically disadvantaged students, and further that the AG provide legal guidance to state agencies in Massachusetts to implement such formulas based on the actual language and legislative intent of the statute should that be in variance with any quote-unquote advisory issued by the U.S. Secretary of Education. Number 8, membership of school committee member on the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. Be it resolved that MASC submit to the general court proposed legislation, and I'll paraphrase now, that Mass General Law, Chapter 15, Section 1E, be revised to include, quote, I now quote again, 1 representative from a school committee from a list of 3 nominees provided by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and 5 additional members. So meaning 5 at large. Number 9, providing equity for sexual orientation, LGBTQ students, teachers, and staff. Be it resolved that MASC file legislation and petition our federal legislative delegation to also file legislation, which would have the effect of adding sexual orientation and gender identity to the list of protected classes in order to provide equity and support for our LGBTQ students, teachers, and staff, and petition our legislative delegation. Number 10 and final, relative to the monitoring of attendance of students during the pandemic, and I will paraphrase here and say, hold districts harmless for attendance this year. Doesn't mean don't report it. It means hold us harmless. Hold all districts harmless.
It's very weighted in the accountability formulas. So if you drop below 95%, you're going to hit a different level of ranking.
And this again is one where our capacity to serve kids exceeds that of many cities and towns, and the threat is not great for us, but it's considerable for other districts that are struggling to do their best too. So these have either lots of implications or they are symbolic statements or something in between. But they do put, should they be resolved by the vote on November 7, they put MASC in the position of advocating for these 10 resolutions in the way described.
Process-wise, Court, I think we don't want to spend hours kind of dissecting each one just because we can't. I would almost ask, are there any that people have concerns with?
I have concerns that certain constituencies will take us to task for various ones because I think that MASC makes no bones about these being progressive and makes no bones about the fact that some of these are going to cost money and fly in the face of fiscal austerity. So, you know, I think we do invite public criticism by some constituents and public praise by others. And but at the end of the day, I have to ask, do I believe in this as appropriate and progressive moves on behalf of children in our schools? So that's one answer. That's my answer.
So you're saying that you have concerns, but at the end of the day, you support all of them?
I don't have concerns about the resolutions. I have concerns about this advocacy that goes beyond our borders, beyond our school walls, being upsetting to some people. I don't like doing that, but it happens sometimes when you take a stand.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, in order to give our two representatives their feedback on how we think they should vote on each of these, unless you had another plan here, I'm just trying to figure out how we can kind of get through this efficiently. Are there ones that people think we should not support, as opposed to going through one by one?
Yeah, and support, non-support can be abstain or vote against.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you specifically worried about 5, 6, and 7 as sort of being outside our purview? Anything else?
I don't think any of them are out of our purview, in that I think this is an opinion that we are sharing with the board of directors of an association.
Court, if I may go off topic here, I know that we were shooting for a end time of no later than 7:30, and I just wanted to have to ask the question: how much time were we planning to devote on this, and do we have an idea on our end time?
I think that's contained in Heather's question. What's our process for coming to some kind of understanding here? I could try to engineer this more tightly, but I think that would foreclose conversation. It could be a very difficult conversation and may require a meeting, or it may require a motion to forego all of this. I don't know, if Adam, I'm in the same boat you are. I had another meeting start a half an hour ago, so.
I mean, yes,
we're all shooting for 7:30, and we've lost it. I know.
Yes, and also these are very important conversations. I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I want to discuss this, but then also it's late in the meeting, and I don't want to shortchange the conversation. So I just wanted to get everybody's opinion on what to do about these at this point. I think it's late in the meeting to engage in a conversation this important and this big.
Other ideas, process? Heather brought up, let's get a process that works here if we can. Fatima's of a mind that may not be possible given the hour. I don't argue with that. What's our way out of this?
I guess maybe first a filter question. Are there ones that people, I guess this was what I was looking for, almost like a consent agenda here. Are there ones that people specifically want to pull out and discuss?
Yeah.
You know, if you think of it as a consent agenda, I can look through them actually and say, okay, I'll support them all. So that may not be the case for everybody. So are there ones that people want to pull out and say, well, I don't know if I support it. And if so, let's see how many there are. And maybe we get to discuss those tonight, maybe not. Maybe we even leave knowing that, you know, 7 out of the 10 we all support and the other 3 we're not sure, whatever. But I think consent agenda, like, we need to find out, are there ones that people want to discuss? Or maybe we're just going to say yes on all of them and then we go through and that's our recommendation. We just need to find out what people want to pull out and discuss.
I personally would like to, again, at a different time, discuss all of them. I think that will, answering that question will open a discussion, I think, which again, I think is kind of late in the meeting to have that conversation. That's my personal feeling.
Okay, so that would mean having another meeting because this happens on the 7th and we don't meet before then.
That's correct. We've got it. It's the election next week, let's be honest. We're not going to meet next time. I'm not going to meet next Tuesday night.
Right.
Although it might be, this may be a safe haven from a lot of the noise.
Come to think of it, yeah.
I would say right here. Yeah.
Well, we can meet in another night. I'm not saying, it's just, I think then we have other people have other commitments. We have to go balance them all out. I'm not opposed to having a meeting. Maybe we can meet Monday after the select board or something.
I really do think that this calls for a meeting. Like you say, Cynthia, it doesn't have to be Tuesday, but I really don't want to shortchange any of those resolutions.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's the case, why don't we coordinate a meeting offline? I don't think we want to match up everybody's schedules here.
I agree with that.
I mean, maybe one of the, I don't know if one of the chairs.
First thing tomorrow, I'll work on coordinating a meeting because we need to post it. We need to.
Right, exactly.
It needs to all fall into that. So hopefully by noon tomorrow, we'll have something scheduled, you know,
Okay.
by tomorrow. Okay.
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 Is it,
So given that, it looks like another meeting, and we want to manage our time, and we've been at this for 3 hours now. Would there be any consideration to moving our policies yet again a few days out?
I would support that.
Could we consider that a motion, Fatima, to postpone item 11D until the next meeting?
So moved.
second?
Discussion, those in favor? Alexa?
Oh, sorry. Jeez Louise. Anderson, aye.
Yeah, you have a tough spot. You know.
No, it's
We just try to put the pressure on the new people. It might go against our hazing policy, but don't tell them.
Booth, aye for both.
About aye for both.
Mrs. Dad, aye for both.
Mustafi, I for region.
Rainey, aye for both.
Wilson, I for region.
Okay. I move that we take item 12C and move it to our first action item for this evening in order to get Mr. Rames home so he can come back tomorrow. Is there a second?
The only good news is that he's already home, but right.
Oh.
Yes, he's been here with you since 5 o'clock.
Good for him.
All right. Those in favor?
Aye. Oh,
Oh, Anderson, aye for both.
Booth, aye both.
About I both.
Mesdat, aye for both.
Mustafi for region.
Rainey, I both.
Wilson for region.
Okay. So we have a motion for the Concord School Committee only now to vote and to award a contract for the purchase of one E-Lion electric bus to Lion Bus of 921 Chemin de la Rivière du Nord, Quebec. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And Laurie, would you and Ian care to give us a quick review? I think we know largely where we stand, but Ian, thank you very much for sticking with us.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll let
Yeah.
Ian, you take it all.
Sure. So this ties back with a grant the town was awarded back at the beginning of the school year. Kate Hanley worked with the Mass DEP on this. It relates back to the Volkswagen emissions scandal settlement funds. This is the first round of grants that went out from the state. We're hoping we'll be able to pick up 2 more buses at some point in the next year or so through these grants. And we completed a procurement process over the summer for these. E-Line won the procurement process. So we actually have an electric bus from E-Line already, and this kind of ties in nicely. The new bus from E-Line is much better in a lot of different ways, so we're pretty excited about this bus.
And we were sort of the beta for an earlier version, right?
Very beta, yeah. So this new bus has a lot of features, including electric heat, which is a big plus. So it doesn't have that separate diesel engine to generate heat.
That's great.
So everything you taught them has been incorporated in this new one.
Yes.
Yep. They've been dragging along our old ones still too, just keeping it updated and improving it as we go. So they've been great.
This is great news. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Questions for Ian? All right. So in that case, we'll do a roll call for Concord, please.
Anderson, aye.
Booth, aye.
About I.
Rainey, I.
Mesdat, aye.
Oops, sorry. Alphabet's a tough thing.
That's right.
We're going to move on to the manual. I think we've given this some public collective attention, and we've all studied it individually. I think you've heard us extend our thanks to you before, Cynthia, so we won't belabor it, but know that we are very, very grateful for the hours you put in over the summer on this. I don't have a wording in front of me, or perhaps I do. Might there be a motion that the Concord and Concord Carlisle school committees vote to adopt the school committee manual as presented in the attached document, the document being the manual? Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Fatima. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Heather. Discussion?
Thank you to Cynthia for
Yeah,
My pleasure.
doing this. Thank you.
it's looking great.
No, I think this will be wonderful for people who are considering public service on the school board in the future.
No, it might scare them away. We shouldn't show it to them until we already have them roped in. Don't share it.
We give it to them after they're sworn in.
Right. Berman, and then you hand it to them. This
Oh,
is
dear.
signed up for.
All right. The truth has been revealed, huh?
Right.
Other comments?
No.
Might we have a roll call? This is for the joint.
Anderson, aye for both.
Booth, aye for both.
About I for both.
Mesdat, aye for both.
Mustafi, aye for region.
Rainey, I for both.
Wilson for region.
Okay. And the last one is a Concord vote to the effect that the Concord School Committee votes to approve the restructured CTA stipend as outlined. Is there a motion to that effect from Concord?
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
And discussion, I'll lead by saying we want to extend our gratitude to the Concord Teachers Association for a considerable amount of work to really lay out in great detail with great accuracy the status of the stipends and how they support extracurricular life in the K-8 system. And it speaks a lot to the dedication of the teachers to put in some extra time and a lot of talent to support and enrich the lives of kids beyond the school day. So we do thank them, and certainly Dr. Hunter and Jared for the time you put in with them. Thank you as well. Might we have a roll call, please, for Concord?
Anderson, aye.
Booth, aye.
About aye.
Mesdat, aye.
Rainey, aye.
Aye. And 7:30, and it's now 8:14. Could be worse. Sarah, do you want to usher us out with a motion to adjourn?
There a motion to adjourn?
So move for both.
Second for both.
Anderson, aye for both.
Booth, aye for both.
About aye for both.
Mesdat, aye for both.
Mustafi, aye for region.
Rainey, aye for both.
Wilson, I for region. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We got a lot of work done.
Good night. Thank you.
Take care.